I have been very critical of Steel Wool ever since the release of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. For those of you somehow unaware, Steel Wool is the company behind Security Breach and both of the FNAF VR games. Something interesting about that is that the VR games are very good and Security Breach is a dumpster fire. Why? Well, Steel Wool is a company that specializes in VR, and if you've never been on the internet before, Security Breach is not a VR game, which probably plays a part into why it's so utterly terrible. So, with Steel Wool announcing their new non-FNAF VR game, Secret of the Mimic, I had my standards so low to the ground it was in the Earth's core. I've recently played through the entire game on stream on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Upon completion, my conclusion was that the game was actually pretty good, and I ended up giving the game a 7 out of 10. Now pause! I beat the whole game in one 7-hour sitting, and if you were to have asked me 7 hours earlier if I would have given this game a 7 out of 10, I would have definitely said no. So, how did we get here? Why did I rate it this way? And the most important question of all, did Steel Wool learn from their mistakes in Security Breach? Let's begin with the opening of the game. We're in a Fazbear Entertainment van driving to a rundown factory that was previously owned by Edwin Murray, his costume factory, Murray's Costume Manor. We're told by the Fazbear Entertainment dispatcher over the phone that we have to go inside and retrieve a few things from one of our contractors, Edwin Murray. Upon entering the building, we're greeted to an opening show that's a little bit broken, probably because of how old and run down this building is. It is here where we learn two incredibly essential game mechanics. One, cranking a lever. This may seem stupid, but I promise you will be cranking levers in this game more than any other task, so really get used to it. And maybe learn that you need to crank the lever clockwise, not counterclockwise. I'll get to that a little bit later. The other major mechanic taught here is our door key. Think of this not really as a key, but more of a key card. On it, you'll see a display of 6 symbols. Each symbol acts as a different entry-level pass, and of course, at the beginning of the game, we only have the first. Next to many doors, there will be a keyhole with a glowing symbol that indicates which level of entry is required to open the door. Very simple mechanic. I'm sure I actually didn't even need to explain all that, but let's move on. Continuing into the next room, we get a great glance at one of my favorite parts of this game, the level of fear it initially invokes. There are several empty costumes throughout this giant building, and I mean several, like a shit ton, a fuckload. Not only are just seeing them around cool, but since the Mimic can enter any suit, and for a large majority of the game, the Mimic is the only actual threat to you, at any moment, any of the costumes you see could get up and begin to move. When I first heard of this mechanic before the game was released, I was actually really turned off to the idea, just from knowing how Steel Wool handled wandering animatronics in Security Breach. For those who don't know, in Security Breach, there are also several wandering animatronics that exist solely to piss me off. A lot of that game has you sneakily maneuvering around these characters as to not be seen. However, in Security Breach, Steel Wool had not figured out how to make good character AI whatsoever. The characters in Security Breach think much more like an AI than an actual real-life threat, which I guess technically makes sense, but it isn't actually fun as a gameplay experience. If getting chased by a character, you turn a corner and hide, the animatronic will more than likely be able to guess where you are and kill you. This is not fun. Imagine you're being chased by someone or something in real life. If you turn a corner and hide without them seeing where, the chances of them knowing where you are immediately are pretty much zero. This is why chases in Security Breach aren't fun. Another reason Security Breach characters fucking suck? Animatronic spawning habits. I stated that the characters wander around. However, I neglected to mention that they will always wander somewhere near the player. For example, if the animatronic is in one room and you move to a room that is a very far distance away from the room the animatronic is in, it obviously wouldn't be very fun from a gameplay standpoint to still have the animatronic wander in that first room. So, how do you fix this issue? Either A, have the animatronic begin walking towards the room the player entered and then continue to aimlessly wander from there. Or B, teleport the animatronic into the new room away from the player and then continue to wander. Security Breach decided that option C was even better. Why teleport the animatronic into the room and away from the player when we could instead spawn the animatronic directly fucking behind them? No, I'm not joking. In my stream of Security Breach, I actually stopped playing because of these two enormous gameplay problems. You can't have a character that will know your location the moment they see you, and then also continuously spawn those characters directly behind the player to get them seen. This does not lead to a fun gameplay experience, it leads to an incredibly frustrating one. So, how does Secret of the Mimic use wandering animatronics? Well, this is actually a spot where Steel Wool learned a lot, and there is actually a very large improvement. So, the Mimic gets into a costume and begins to wander. Let's say it sees you and a chase ensues. If you were to turn a corner and leave its line of sight, instead of knowing exactly where you are like in Security Breach, it will instead mark the last point it saw you and move there. Then it will wait to see if it can see you again, and if it can't, it will continue to walk in the direction you went in. Meaning that if you turn a corner and hid in a locker, it would not know you went into the locker and would walk past it. This is how you do a wandering threat mechanic. This creates fun strategic gameplay, not frustrating poopy ass gameplay. Anyways, we try to enter another room but see that the key symbol doesn't allow access as it's one level too high, so we continue. We find a mailbox machine, which I will say doesn't really make sense from almost any standpoint. You can insert your key into the mailbox machine to then add whatever mail was inside into your key box. And at several computers we find later, we can then read those letters. I have no idea how this makes any lick of sense in the game world, and there are several questions I could ask to break the logic of this mechanic, but I don't want this video to be an hour long, so let's just forget about this. Continuing in the other direction, we walk into this game's central hub area, where the very important security office room is located. Here we learn another frequent mechanic, jerking off generators. That's all I have to say about it. I could explain the mechanic a little bit more in detail, but I mean, just look at it. We're jerking it off. We can see the level to access the security office is one level above ours, but after jerking off the generator, it busts and the door opens and we can enter, hearing the dispatcher over the intercom inside. The dispatcher tells us that the Mimic is currently active inside the building and that it does have some homicidal tendencies. I could have figured that without him telling me, but that's cool, I suppose. It's also in this room where we find three very important and frequent machines we'll be seeing around the building: the computer, the upgrade station, and the inventory. The computer is pretty simple. With it, we can check the map of the building, read the mail we collect, and run a minigame called Moon EXE and something called Parachute.exe that requires the maximum access level to run. The upgrade station is pretty simple. It upgrades our key to the next access level. And finally, the inventory, which is a little silly. Around the map, you will be able to find several objects, most of which being collectibles, but some being important objects like cranks. You can put these objects into the inventory and then access them at any other inventory machine we find later. This bitch is literally just an ender chest. Holy shit, we've done a lot of yapping, but I had to do so in order to explain the central mechanics of this game. Now we can actually start talking about what happens. Let's take a little note. This game is very large and very long, just like my meat whistle, and it would take literally hours to talk about everything as in detail as I've been talking about it so far. So, for the sake of the sanity of you, me, and my editor, I will very simply be going over what happens for the majority of the game, only pausing to go into detail for things I think really matter, or for things that stuck out to me. I'm not going to be deep diving into every puzzle we have to solve, nor will I be mind-numbingly explaining every little bit of fucking backtracking we do. Trust me, you'll still be able to follow along with what's happening if you have a brain in your skull though. So, let's continue. Using our upgraded key, we head back to that locked room from earlier and enter inside, solve a puzzle that turns the power to the building on and allows for the dispatcher to talk to us over the building's overhead intercoms. It's also here where we get our first glance at the Mimic inside of the stupid fucking elephant costume we saw at the beginning of the game, stalking us from outside of the room. Alright, here we go guys. Back in the security office, we're told that we need to find the schematics for the Mimic, which are likely in the executive office. Of course, we need the highest access level to be able to go there, and of course, all of the other upgrade stations are in random areas around the building. Have you sensed how this game is going to work? Go to this section of the building, solving puzzles and avoiding a big boss, threat, or event, upgrade your pass, come back to the hub area, and repeat until you can get to the executive area. This is not a loop that bothers me. I love linearity like this, but I also know that some people don't, so this may be a turnoff for you. We grab a crank from the inventory and make our way towards the warehouse where the next upgrade station is. We use the crank to open this gate. Oh fuck, goddamn! Alright, shit, the first scripted chase in this game. This one is pretty easy to get away from, however. Just hide in a locker and walk around it. All good. This is how most chases in this game will be. except the future ones will be random. During this chase, however, is probably when I should mention noise distractions. It's another way to manipulate the Mimic's AI. Given that the Mimic doesn't have a line of sight on you, if you cause a distraction, for example, grabbing a wind-up mouse and making noise, it will pursue the sound before continuing to look for you. This makes for a more strategic way of getting around the threats. Even though I literally only used this once throughout my whole playthrough, and it wasn't until near the end of the game, I would recommend you do this though and not play the way I do. Heading into the next area, we see we need a crank to open up a gate. Wandering into another room, we actually find the next upgrade station. That was oddly easy. However, we still need that crank. Speaking of crank, I yank my crank on the daily. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. Let's move on. We walk through a giant hole in the wall into what seems to be a place where kids can play, or something like that. We find a giant present with a crank on it. Great, let's steal this bitch. Now, this is the first section of the game where I encountered two problems. First, for the love of God, turn the cranks clockwise. I turned this crank counterclockwise, and while it will still work if you choose to do this, you will have to crank it for about 19 times as long, so just how about we turn it the right way? After cranking enough, we see Jackie, a giant puppet, jump out of the box. Some might say she's a baddie. I for one know how to keep it in my pants, however. Also, in doing this, the crank broke off and we can use it to open that pesky gate. But pause, let's talk about how I soft-locked myself here and broke the game. When I first saw that we needed a crank to open the gate, I had not yet found the Jack-in-the-Box room. So what I did was go to the inventory and pull out the last crank that was inside, as I was just taught to do so in the section previously. After doing so, I let Jackie out of the box and retrieved the second crank, which fell on the floor. I decided I liked the new crank better because the handle was red. What can I say? I'm a simple man. I took this crank to the door and realized I couldn't put it into the handle. I thought I'd try the other one that I pulled out of the inventory. So I dropped this new one on the ground, grabbed the other, and noticed I couldn't insert this one either. I then thought that maybe I broke the game and just needed to put the one I took out of the inventory back in. So I did so and went back to try to put the new crank into the handle. However, remember how I said I dropped it on the ground? Well, I happened to drop it directly into the hitboxes of some bricks, which prevented me from ever being able to pick it back up. So, I can't pick up the correct crank, and the other crank I have access to won't go into the handle. So I'm soft-locked, and I had to reset. I didn't lose much progress, but I just find it odd that with a whole team of game testers, nobody ever thought to try this. I feel like what I did wasn't even that far-fetched. But hey, maybe it was. I don't know. Just thought I'd mention that I did this. Going past this gate, we enter a room with a mailbot inside. We find a generator and our instincts kick in, so we start jerking it off. After getting it active, the gooning material Jackie enters the room. I guess the Mimic thought now was a great time to climb inside of her, which I'm assuming makes a few of you fucking freaks pretty jealous. She rudely attacks the minimum wage working mailbot and throws him into a fucking wall. Can all my wages relate to this? Anyways, it's at this point that Jackie then sets her sights on us and the chase ensues. This chase is by far my favorite in the entire game. Something we'll notice as we continue playing this game is that it begins to lose steam as it goes on. But to be fair, that is to be expected with most games that exist. This chase has us running through the warehouse, but Jackie is fucking awesome, and throughout this chase she will be trying to hug us. Again guys, keep it in your pants, it's a robot. But as you're running through the tight corridors, you'll actually see her arms reach out from behind you, which is honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen come out of a chase before. I just can't get enough of how cool, scary, and intense this chase really was. On top of that, this chase is actually pretty damn long too, which I also think is awesome. There's a criticism I have with Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, that being, they go through the characters in that game so quickly that none of them really leave an impact. Trust me, each major antagonist like Jackie in Secret of the Mimic leaves an impact, and the length of the battle is definitely one of those reasons. Something cool about this long chase though is that there's always something different happening. Very rarely is it just run down a long hall like it's a chase straight out of Garden of Banban. There's always levers to pull and doors to open that make these chases even more intense. We slam Jackie in a gate and jerk off another generator. Believing we're safe, we continue, but guess what, fucker? Jackie is right in front of us and we're stuck in a vent. What are we to do? Well, Jackie weighs as much as a Discord moderator, thankfully, and the vent crashes. We wake up in the security office where we learn that the vent was actually right above it and we crashed through the ceiling. Yet for whatever reason, Jackie didn't kill us. We're told by the dispatcher that the next upgrade station is in the showroom back through the first room we entered. Entering the next room right before the showroom, we see a fuck ton of empty costumes. And it's here where I need to bring up what I feel is the biggest issue this game has: how and when the Mimic chooses to enter costumes. Upon coming into this room, it is incredibly likely that the Mimic will enter one of the costumes. Cool, let's start distracting it and sneaking around. As you play this game, you will become very good at learning how to do this, but now brings up the big problem that kind of seems to have come over from Security Breach: the teleporting mechanic. I will say that in this game it's far less egregious, but it's still worth talking about. The Mimic will switch costumes sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when it switches, it tends to choose a costume to switch to randomly, even if that new costume is on the other side of the room. This very obviously leads to some pretty annoying issues. The main one being, hey look, you distracted the Mimic and moved to the other side of the room. It's now safe to walk around because there's no way the Mimic will see you. Uh-oh, fucker. You thought you were safe after you played the game by its rules and avoided the threat? Well, guess what? The Mimic has now entered a costume that's directly in front of you. This is obviously a big problem. On multiple occasions throughout my playthrough, I'd walk directly into a costume that the Mimic was in because I knew that previously it wasn't close to me. Even though I was keeping tabs on where the threat was, I was still punished. I feel like this took away from the immersion and fear factor and instead left me feeling pretty annoyed and frustrated. But continuing, we enter a room and find my favorite character in this entire game: a tiny little cleaning robot who's just sweeping the floor. There are several of these throughout the game. They're adorable and I love them dearly, and I chose to name all of them Roffus. So I will be calling them this throughout the rest of the video. Want to hear the best part about Roffus? You can literally pet him! Give him some head pats! I fucking love this game! Hi! Oh my god! Oh my god! I fucking love this thing, bro! Pat! Oh my goodness, go Pat! Oh, one more! Oh my god! As I was streaming this, someone actually drew fan art of me and Roffus, which I think is just awesome. Also, while looking for this fan art for the editor to throw on screen, I also found a sketch of some more Skags and Roffus fan art. So here's that art too. We find an elevator that's fucked as shit by a costume head. We have to use a machine that teaches us how to fix it instead of just grabbing the head out of the gears ourselves like a normal person. I don't really know why safety is a big concern now, given the fact we willingly went into a building with an actual murder robot. We have to retrieve the maintenance cassette to learn how to properly fix the elevator, which is conveniently located in a room approximately 95 football fields in length away, which means we have to walk back through the room of bullshit, dick-ass, fuck-ass costumes. After grabbing the cassette, we head back to the elevator and learn the process of fixing it. Keep this in mind because it will become incredibly important later. We fix the elevator and can continue moving on. Going up the elevator, we find Roffus number 2, give him a pat, and enter the showroom where we meet the next big bad. Fucking Music Man. By the way, I know his name is Big Top in this game, but I'm choosing to call him Music Man instead, so eat my ass. While I think this section is very fun, here is where I also found another way to softlock myself. However, before I talk about how, let's go over what it is we're supposed to do. The goal in this section is to spin the prize wheel, but you have to complete minigames and beat the scores in order to win prize wheel spins. Music Man will be watching you the whole time. You'll see multiple mannequins around the area for some reason, and if you walk into any of them, they will make a lot of noise.
I want to pay money to play these games.
Keep that in mind. The first game I chose to play had us shooting targets with a toy gun. However, I found it way more fun to shoot the stupid fucking Helpy Bear in the face. After completing this minigame, the power to the large room goes off, and Music Man goes into attack mode. Thankfully, he is bolted to the ground and can't actively move around, but he will spin in a circle trying to look for you. If you make too much noise, either by walking, running, or bumping into one of the mannequins, then he will immediately turn towards you and butt-fuck your pussy and/or bussy. After the lights went out, several more mannequins spawned, acting more like a maze now. You'll have to quickly move around them because, again, Music Man is rotating in a circle and will kill you if he sees you, so you have to move fast. Once you get back to the entrance, you will have to complete an energy puzzle. But you want to know something cool? It's timed! Yay! As you're trying to complete it, Music Man will slowly pull himself towards you. If you're too slow, he's gonna have a bussy buffet. After you turn the power back on, I guess he decides he doesn't want to kill you anymore and goes back to behaving. Now we're free to do the wheel spin. Fun fact, it's rigged as shit, and you'll always get nothing on every spin except the last one. But after getting your spins done, we have to go play another minigame. The next one I chose to do was one of those classic games where we have to throw a ball at some big goofy ass teeth. However, once again, I found it much more amusing to throw the balls at Helpy instead. Let's speed this up. You have to play a minigame, sneak around the Music Man, and quickly solve the energy puzzle 3 times in a row to complete this section. On the final wheel spin, we win the grand prize and can continue. But let me explain how I soft-locked myself first. Somehow, this is even dumber than the last time. So, there are 3 minigames to do in this section. The first shooting minigame, the ball throwing game, and the second space shooting minigame, which plays the same as the first, but it's in space. What you're supposed to do is play each minigame once. However, there's nothing preventing you from playing any of the games more than once. So what I did was do the first shooting minigame, then the ball minigame, and then in the third cycle decided to do the first shooting minigame again, because like I said, the game allowed me to. When you enter one of those minigame areas and start the minigame, a door closes behind you to prevent you from fucking something up. However, since the game didn't expect me to do the same game twice, after I beat the score and the power went off, signaling me to go do the power puzzle, the doors behind me never opened back up, and I was stuck in the minigame room, soft-locked. Again, I have no idea how in testing nobody ever caught this. This seems like such a simple mistake for a player to make, even more simple than the last problem I had. If any of the devs are watching this video, please, fix this, please. Thank you. Anyways, after winning the grand prize, we can head up the stairs and hear a large crash. What the fuck? We look down where we were before and see that Music Man has broken himself off the floor and is nowhere to be found. Well, looks like we're fucked. We solve a puzzle to upgrade our key and continue moving forward. We head out onto the roof of the building and the game autosaves. Uh-oh. Here comes a boss fight. As we explore, we see Music Man climb the fucking building like King Kong and the chase begins. Now, you remember how I said I really liked Jackie's chase? I cannot say the same for Music Man's. His chase isn't inherently bad, I just personally am not a fan. I will say that it does start pretty sick. We begin by running down some spiral-like stairs with him crawling down the center, which looks fucking awesome. But then, we get to the fuck-ass office building chase, which I hate. You will have to run through different office rooms, and Music Man's arms will break through the ceiling, preventing you from going into some rooms. So you'll really have to be on your toes. But here's the reason I dislike this chase so much. Usually in cases that have this think on your toes mechanic, you have to learn which path you need to take. And for me specifically, who doesn't handle chases very well in any game, it takes me a few attempts to learn the chase. Well, each time you do this chase, the path you need to take becomes randomized. So I never had the chance to learn the pattern. I just had to throw myself at it over and over again until I got lucky. Is this in part a skill issue? 100% it is, but I am giving my review and I personally am not a huge fan of this section of the chase. After the office section, we move to what I'll call the crawling section. The chase gets much better from here. As we crawl through a tight corridor, Music Man's arms will slam through the ceiling and we just have to avoid them. Super easy. Then we get to the mannequin section, and the chase begins to get bad again. Not nearly as bad as the office section though. I like how this part of the chase uses a mechanic we saw from Music Man earlier. However, I still want to die. There's one corridor where Music Man will slam his arm through the ceiling and leave a mannequin behind. And if you slow down for even a fraction of a second, you will die. And I did die. And then I shit myself. Once we get past that, we find another staircase. Music Man crawls down, but just like Jackie, is fat as shit and breaks the stairs. We fall together, and when the smoke clears, we see that Music Man got burned the fuck up. Oh shit, bitch got burned to smithereens. Eat a dick, Paul Blart! Okay, we're good. Not even a problem. We head back to the security office and are told by the dispatcher that the next upgrade station is in the theater. Once we arrive there, we learn in order to enter the theater, we need to be wearing a costume. Specifically, what appears to be a springlock costume. Which leads me to believe that it was Edwin who designed the springlock mechanics and not William. Lore! Anyways, it's not just as easy as hopping into the suit and going in. We first have to find all the limbs and the head, which are scattered around the area. Oh, also, in this room, we see Roffus number 3. Pet, pet. Getting the pieces is not hard. Avoiding the mimic who teleports into a fuck ton of costumes kind of is. Collecting all the pieces probably took me 40 minutes, but if you're actually talented, you could probably do it in 10. Just know, it's not hard. But if you want to see me do it, you can see it in the VOD on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Hopping into the suit, we move on. While in this suit, the mimic will not be able to tell it's us, so we're completely safe. However, while in the suit, we won't be able to perform important tasks, so we'll have to hop out of the suit to do so, leaving us vulnerable. Our suit is also equipped with a gun, which is honestly just giving me way too much power. Anyways, we have to solve a power puzzle and move on to the next room where we need to ditch our suit for the time being. It's also here where we learn the point of this section of the building, to act as a place that will write stories and create shows for people. Who really gives a fuck about that though? Why give a shit when I can see a ghost-ass white tiger costume giggling like a schoolgirl? Yes, I'm serious. What the fuck is that? Moving on, we solve a quick puzzle that wasn't quick for me at all because I'm bad, and that allows us to continue moving our suit and move on to the special event of this section, the show. The show itself is boring as dick. Throughout, we have to use the gun on our suit to shoot some targets to progress the story, and occasionally shoot little puppets that try to attack us. But here we learn something super interesting. This game takes place in the 50s, so long before the first Freddy's location. Yet somehow, both Foxy and Roxy are in this show, which leads me to believe that Edwin designed those two characters as well. Lore! More lore! After completing the show, the ledge we're standing on breaks and we get fucked up. We wake up in a hospital area with a thick-ass nurse taking care of us. She believes that we're a robot because, no shit, we're sitting in a suit. She notices that there's a foreign object inside of us, and I tell her I have a foreign object that could be inside of her too. If you couldn't guess, Nurse Sweet Cheeks will be the boss of this section. While we move around, we see that she's stuck on a track, so great. Her movement is limited. Oh god damn it, she broke off the fucking track and is now free roaming. Fuck! Since the area we're in now in the building is a recycling center, in order to continue, we need to do some recycling. And of course, Nurse Boner Alert is roaming the whole time. This section isn't too hard, and I actually kind of liked it, even despite the fact it may seem like otherwise in the VOD on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Thankfully for us, I didn't softlock myself in this area this time. It's also in this area where we find the next upgrade station, and we're actually almost completely upgraded. After recycling all of the trash, the chase begins. This one is a bit different. It takes place on a conveyor belt that she's walking against. We have to shoot garbage out of some vents to fuck her ass up and push her into some lava. Wow, that was, actually surprisingly easy. I was concerned I was going to be stuck on this chase for an hour like I was with Music Man. Moving on with our brand spanking new upgrade, we begin to head back to the security office and oh, for fuck's sake, the lava didn't kill her! Of course the chase isn't over, you moron, that was way too fast. Before I talk about this chase, I want to mention how fucking awesome the music for it is. It's my favorite song in the whole soundtrack, and I'll make sure it's the background music for this section. You hear that, editor? It better be the fucking chase music in the background right now, or I'm gonna make the next video you edit be 3 hours long. Got it? Alright, good boy. The chase continues through the recycling center, with some fun sneaking sections mixed in too. But what I really want to talk about is the elevator section. What I assumed was the end of the chase is when we entered the elevator and escape. The elevator breaks and we have to listen to Fiona, who we later find out is Edwin's wife, teach us how to fix it again. Remember how I said to remember the fixing section from earlier? This is why. After fixing the elevator, Nurse Hotbottom drops her fat ass cheeks on top of the elevator. And now we have to fix it again. But this time, we're against the clock for her pegging me. Yay! I'm so fucking excited to fix this elevator for the next half an hour. Yes, it actually took me that long. I'm so fucking terrible at playing games. In all reality, this section isn't hard. I'm actually just terrible. After we get the elevator fixed, it starts rising quickly. Knowing it's about to get squished in the ceiling, we get to watch the mimic jump out of the 4th hottest animatronic in the whole franchise right before it gets fucked up. And this chase comes to a close. I think this chase so far is the weakest in the game, but I do think the reveal of what the mimic actually looks like is pretty cool and adds some points to it though. We get back to the security office and the dispatcher tells us the next place we have to go is the admin wing, which is through the warehouse. Amazing. What's in the warehouse to blow my guts up like Nagasaki? Well, it's a fat, ugly, Chica-looking ass bitch. Actually, I liked this section. It was simple, yet straightforward. The goal is to find 3 pieces to a power puzzle, then solve it and vacate the area. The pieces are scattered throughout the warehouse and the Chica ripoff is skating around trying to find you. Very simple, very fun, not much else to say about it. We head through the gate and move on to the next area, which contained a puzzle that gave me a terrible headache. I should note that throughout my playthrough, I decided that every time I died, I'd take a shot. And I died a lot. So having to think hard on a puzzle this deep into the game in my state took a lot out of me. But after a bunch of trial and error, we made it work and could continue. Oh wait, I forgot to mention that after you do this puzzle once and get to the other side of the room, then you have to do it again. I want to kill myself. Moving on to the next room, we see Carl the Cupcake? What the fuck? Did Edwin design that too? Well, whatever. When you get close to a Carl, they will make a fuck ton of noise. I'm betting you can guess where this is going. The next area has apparently not Ripoff Chica return, in a tight, cramped office area with a metric ass load of Carls around to ruin your day. I also want to mention that while playing this section, I got asked by someone in chat, quote, "If a femboy hit on you, would you fold?" This is not at all important to the gameplay one bit, just thought I'd mention how weird you freaks are. Moving to the next room, we find Roffus number 4. Pet pet. We also find the next upgrade station, and I figured out that this section is the lore dump area of the game. Yay, my favorite, lore dumping! Anyways, it's at this point we enter the room we've been trying to get to this whole time and download the Mimic blueprints. A very small chase with Chica begins. You just crawl into a vent. Awesome. This is kind of where I feel the game really starts to lose steam and turn more into a lore festival than a game. Moving on to the next area, we find Roffus number 5. Pet pet. You might be wondering what the boss of this section is. No way it was Chica, right? You're correct. It most certainly was not Chica. We head underground into the darkest room of all time and learn that the major fight of this section is against the stupid white tiger ghost costume we saw earlier. The tiger teleports around and can't go into the light. Lights around the dark room turn off and on, so you have to dash from one section to the other. At the end of the mad dash, there's a glowing star, which is probably important to the lore in some way. You take that star through a fucked up maze, all while the tiger will randomly teleport in front of you, jump scaring you and making you restart. I'm not really the biggest fan of this section, I can't lie, so I'm gonna try to get through it as quickly as I can. After getting through the maze, you set the star back down and do another mad dash section. Do this mad dash to maze section 3 times and we're done. Thank God. After this, we head to an elevator and all the way back up to the security office. The dispatcher tells us our work here is done and we should put our key into the inventory and leave. Does this at all sound a bit suspicious to you? Well, who really cares? We're done. We put the key back in the inventory and walk out of the building. On the drive home, the dispatcher calls us and asks why he hasn't been able to get a hold of us for the last few hours. Confused, our character, whose name is fucking Arnold, by the way, horrible name. Anyway, sorry. Confused, Arnold tells the dispatcher that he's been talking to him the whole time, and that he just told him to put his key away. The dispatcher is confident that he never told Arnold to do this, and it's here where we learn that the Mimic had been mimicking the voice of the dispatcher throughout the intercoms throughout the entire game. The Mimic tricked us into giving it the blueprints so that it could destroy them. Looking behind us, we see the Mimic in the back of the van, and it attacks, and the game comes to a close, giving us the bad ending. As the credits play out, we see ourselves in the POV of Freddy, with Chica and Bonnie at our sides, with the Mimic watching us perform. Hold the fuck up. Pause. What the fuck just happened? Well, as I said, what we just did was the bad ending. There's a few more endings to cover. I will note that I only got 2 endings, the bad ending and the extended bad ending. What the fuck does extended bad ending mean? Well, let's go over that one now. Going back to being able to put the key in the inventory, if we instead take it and travel deeper into the building, the Mimic shows its true colors and tells us that we're going to die. We travel to some vents and head back up to the first room we entered and travel down through the floor deeper into the facility. It's at this moment when we're attacked by fucking Music Man again. What the fuck? I thought he was dead. As we travel down this large elevator, he will slowly begin crawling after us. Every once in a while, the elevator will stop and we'll have to quickly pull some levers to get it to continue moving. This random fight was so unexpected, I actually think it's pretty cool that he came back out of nowhere. I was honestly pleasantly surprised considering how much I hated his original fight. After escaping, we enter a new room, seeing a massive Freddy head. The original Freddy. Remember, it's the 50s, years before the first Freddy's location. Yet, here he is. Why? Well, it's at this section we learn that Edwin was actually originally in charge of the Freddy Fazbear Project, which is one of the craziest twists of all fucking time. But I'm gonna be real, it also makes the entirety of the lore all the more confusing. Oh yeah, also, Roffus number 6. Pet pet. Moving on, we enter the room where we ended at in the bad ending, seeing Bonnie and Chica half-built performing on stage. But wait, they were way more built than this at the end of the bad ending. Does that mean that the Mimic finished building them during that ending? Keep that thought in the back of your head. Going to a computer, we activate the stage lights to watch the show, and the Mimic crawls out of the pile of endoskeletons. Not in a costume, just a jumbled mess of fuck. This section confused me a little bit, but it's actually pretty cool. We have to get to the office in the back room, but the Mimic will close the doors when we get near them. This is literally just Five Nights at Freddy's 1, but in reverse, where the Mimic is trying to keep us out of the office. It's actually so fucking cool. Around the room there are 2 Springlock costumes, one of Bub, a boss from FNAF World, which is weird, and another of Monty from Security Breach. Holy fucking shit, how many things did Edwin create? This is insane! What you have to do is get in the Springlock costumes and leave them next to the doors. This will make the Mimic close the doors and waste power. However, you'll notice when you bring the first Springlock to the door, the fake dispatcher says, "It cannot see you in the suit, but I can." That's right, the fake dispatcher actually isn't the Mimic. So, who could it be? After leaving both suits at the doors, 2 more doors open, revealing that there are an additional 2 doors we need to block with 2 more Springlock suits. Awesome! As we walk to the next set of doors, the fake dispatcher voice starts to change into a more female-sounding voice.
Power. It will trap us both down here in the dark.
Isn't that interesting? The remaining 2 Springlock suits are Lefty, what? Nah, just kidding. I'm pretty sure this is just Fredbear. And the other appears to be Spring Bonnie. Are we serious? Did Edwin literally just create everything by himself? Did William just steal every idea from him? This is so fucking weird, it's completely flipping everything we know about the lore on its head. After blocking the remaining 2 doors, the fake dispatcher opens them, revealing that it's been Fiona, Edwin's wife, that's been talking to us the entire time. As a machine? I'm so sorry, I really have no fucking idea what's going on. I know I'm really bad at explaining lore, but I'm trying my best. It seems like Fiona has turned into a goddamn robot. I'm assuming at some point she died to something and Edwin was like, fuck that, I want a robot wife now, and somehow put her soul into this machine in the building or some shit. I don't really know, guys, I'm sorry. Fiona tells us we have to head to their house, which is apparently in the fucking building underground for some reason. Literally, what the fuck is going on? Fiona tells us that Edwin abandoned her and their son David by doing nothing but working non-stop. Originally, the Mimic was supposed to entertain David while Edwin was working, but at some point it gained homicidal tendencies for some reason. Please, correct me on anything I'm wrong about in the comments, guys. I'm pretty sure most theories I'm going to attempt to form in this video will be incorrect as fuck. We travel into the house section and have to collect a bunch of film reels scattered around while avoiding the Mimic. At the end of each film reel is a number, and matching the color of the reel to the colors of the letters in the name David, visible on a picture on the projector, we'll be able to figure out the code to open a door that's located upstairs. Just don't question it, guys. Just go with it at this point. The FNAF lore hasn't made any sense since Ultimate Custom Night anyways. In these tapes, we see Edwin's neglect for his wife and son, and in one tape, see that the fucking Mimic is Fiona? What the fuck is happening right now? So, I guess at some point Fiona fucking died, so Edwin had the Mimic start mimicking her to be a mother figure to David? Do you guys think after the Mimic took over Fiona's role, Edwin fucked the Mimic too? Dear lord, guys, the fanfic writers are about to go apeshit with this. Inputting the code, we enter one of the final rooms and find Roffus number 7. Pet pet. We also get to hear an audio recording that is so fucking confusing I don't even want to talk about it. nor do I even know where to begin talking about it. Basically, in this recording, Edwin sounds like he's hurt, as he continues to ask M2, which by the way is what they call the Mimic in this game, for help and to call an ambulance. The Mimic, who at this point is mimicking Edwin, is talking to Edwin like Edwin is David. My brain is about to fucking explode. So, Edwin is dying and begging the Mimic for help, but the Mimic is in fucking La La Land and is pretending to be Edwin and is pretending that the dying Edwin is David, and is neglecting the fake David, who is Edwin, who needs help and is dying. Does that make sense? I don't blame you if you think it doesn't, because it's confusing as fuck. We enter a hidden surveillance room and run cradle.exe like Fiona asked us to. But the Mimic finds us and the final chase ensues. We jerk off a generator which starts a fire because it wouldn't be a FNAF game without one of those, now would it? And we enter an elevator, leaving the Mimic on that floor. As we travel up in the elevator, Fiona begins talking through the intercoms to the Mimic and calling it Edwin, which would lead me to believe that Edwin somehow put himself into the Mimic while he was dying? Or maybe they're pulling a complete 180 and in that recording we just heard, the Edwin begging for help is actually the Mimic, and the real Edwin is the one pretending that the dying Edwin is David? I swear to God, this has to be one of the most mindfuck type shit I've ever seen in my life. After exiting the elevator, the final chase ensues. Running through really tight corridors, not only is the Mimic, or is it Edwin chasing us? I have no fucking idea at this point. But on top of that, a bunch of little fucked up looking munchkin robots are chasing us as well. They vaguely remind me of the little smiling critters from Poppy Playtime. We run onto a small metal bridge and the Mimic drops down in front of us, but before it can pounce on us like I pounced on an Arby's beef and cheddar, another metal platform falls out of the sky and crushes that bitch. But the chase is still not over. We have to crawl through the burning building as the little fuckhead abominations crawl after us, hop onto a roller coaster cart, and finally we can relax as it drives us to the exit. Just kidding! It drops us off next to a bunch of fire, and we have to run through the burning building into the parking lot where even more little gremlins surround us. We jump into the van and we're out of that bitch, still with our key and the Mimic blueprints in our arms. As we race away from the building, the little bitching nematodes attack our van, and if that wasn't enough, somehow the Mimic has also gotten onto our van and punches the shit out of the windshield. The van crashes, and as we come to, the Mimic reaches in and grabs our key from us, attaching it to its body and leaving us to die in the burning vehicle. The Mimic, Edwin, whoever the fuck it is, didn't want to kill us. It seems it only wanted the blueprints, but I'm not sure why. And that's where the extended bad ending comes to a close. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did I say the extended bad ending? What I meant to say earlier was the true ending. Yes, I'm 100% serious. That is the true ending to Secret of the Mimic. No matter what you do, you still lose in the end. The Mimic will always beat you. But what about the New Game Plus secret ending? Wait, Dxtr, there's a New Game Plus? What does it add? A bunch of fucking nothing, really. If on New Game Plus you collect all 25 collectibles and put them in the inventory, complete moon.exe, and go to get the true ending, you'll be able to unlock a bunch of doors you couldn't open previously in the house section. You'll be able to collect 6 different cassettes, which will open a vent. Following the vent will bring you to a bedroom, which can only be assumed to be David's. Inside, you'll find a podium with a book on it. If you put the white tiger collectible on top, the Mimic, pretending to be David, will creep out of the closet. A recording will start playing, reading him a story. Every so often, the story will stop, which makes the Mimic mad. It will transform back to normal and try to attack you. You'll need to continue the story by pressing the correct buttons. You'll notice each button represents a Five Nights at Freddy's character. A bear for Freddy, a rabbit for Bonnie, a chicken for Chica, a fox for Foxy, an alligator for Monty, and a dog for... who the fuck knows? Roxy? I know she's a wolf, but eat my ass. The order you need to press the buttons is rabbit, chicken, dog, and bear. After that, the Mimic will tweak the fuck out and you'll be able to inject the original M2 schematics, which was supposed to be David, back into the Mimic. It will then transform back into David, grab the tiger, and go to sleep in the bed. Then the true ending continues to play out how it did before. What does this weird little secret ending tell us though? Well, here are my initial thoughts. Note, I am no expert theorist, and I'm probably about to be wrong as fuck. They call the Mimic M2 throughout this game. M2, I'm assuming, was supposed to be David after his death. That's why I think we downloaded the blueprints for the Mimic, or M2, who was David, and injected it back into the Mimic in the secret ending. Because obviously, once we do that, it stops attacking us and just plays as David. M1, who isn't explicitly mentioned in this game, I'm assuming is Fiona, who I'm also going to make a stretch about and say she's also Glitchtrap. I'm thinking the Mimic and Glitchtrap are completely different, and are just two iterations of the same idea. Maybe that was obvious, and maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. I have no idea. I think that's honestly what the secret of the Mimic was. I think that the secret is that there are two of them, technically. The endoskeleton, M2, or David, and Glitchtrap, M1, or Fiona. Where Edwin falls into this, aside from creating both of them and apparently seemingly every major animatronic from all of the games and all the fucking springlocks? Again, I'm not sure. I like to complain about games. Analysis is not my strong suit. But as far as I'm aware, that is all Secret of the Mimic has to offer. In all honesty, I went into this game expecting to hate it, but it's honestly now one of my favorite official Five Nights at Freddy's games, only being beaten by Pizzeria Simulator. Seriously, nothing can beat that final Henry monologue. It's very clear that Steel Wool has learned from their mistakes in Security Breach. There are plenty of questions left to answer, like which ending in this game is canonical, and if it's the secret ending, then how is the Mimic in Security Breach? I'll leave actual talented people to figure that out while I keep making sex jokes and yelling at horror games. Again, I believe in terms of gameplay that this game is solid. I do think it starts to lose a lot of steam after the nurse chase, and I think that the final fight against the Mimic is a bit underwhelming, but I also feel like that was somewhat intended. Of course we were supposed to lose. We know the Mimic appears in later games. There was never a way to properly defeat it, and I don't think that's a bad thing either. What's the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? I think there's a few answers that could really give a valid argument. Maybe you think it's One Night at Flumpty's. Maybe you think Pop Goes. Or maybe... maybe you're super wrong and think Five Nights at Candy's 2. God, I fucking hate that stupid game so much. It's so goddamn boring and repetitive. I'd rather stick my dick in a toaster than play it. But hey, that's probably a video for another day. I should mention that the title of this video says the best FNAF fan game, but what that really means is from a gameplay standpoint. How fun is it to actually play? Maybe after hearing that, your answer has changed. The game we'll be covering in this video is, in my opinion, the best FNAF fan game from a gameplay standpoint that has ever been made, The Joy of Creation Storyborn. Fun fact, Markiplier also agrees with me on this point.
I'm not even lying about this. This was amazing. This is by far the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made. Just from a gameplay standpoint. And I'm only speaking from a gameplay standpoint.
So yeah, Markiplier and I are basically best friends. Mark, if you're watching, best friend, leave a comment that just says, "Peep." That way everyone will know that we are canonically best friends. Thanks, my boy. The Joy of Creation story mode is, as I'm sure you already know, not the first game in the Joy of Creation series, but let's all be honest with each other, it's easily the first one that's actually enjoyable to play. The original Joy of Creation might actually be the most boring experience of all time. It consisted of you sitting in a chair, spinning in a circle, and flashing your flashlight at everything you see for an infinite amount of time. That's right, there wasn't even a time system. Story mode, however, is absolutely amazing, so let's get into it. The game opens with a cutscene. We play as an adult named Nick Cawthon. Recognize that last name? Well, you should, and don't worry, I'll be talking about it in a bit. Nick walks up to an old house in the middle of the woods and recounts how long it's been since he's last been there, insinuating that something terrible happened inside before. We get a flashback detailing the start of what happened, and we're shifted into the point of view of a new character named Michael. Michael wakes up in a basement. We find out it is in fact not Michael's basement, and is instead Scott Cawthon's? What the fuck? Regardless, Scott asks Michael what he's doing in their house. Michael states that he doesn't know, and a child version of Nick convinces Scott and Val, who is Scott's wife, to let Michael stay the night at their house. Absolutely, positively, possibly one of the worst plays I've ever witnessed in my whole entire life. You found a guy in your basement, talked to him for 3 minutes, got a solid 0 answers from him, and allowed him to stay in your house overnight while your wife and child are inside. Absolutely brilliant. This is when we enter the first, what the game calls memories. I can't call them nights since all of the challenges we will play through actually happen at pretty much the exact same time. For memory 1, we are in a bedroom in a crib, where we play as Nick again, this time as a child. We wake up in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, and Michael starts talking through Nick's baby monitor, effectively acting as the phone guy of this memory. Michael explains to Nick that there are monsters trying to get him, and explains in detail how to fend them all off, explaining that at 6 a.m., the monsters will all go away, and we're thrown into the first challenge. Unlike in most FNAF games where you slowly are introduced to each animatronic throughout the nights, adding more and more stress as it goes on, Story Mode opts to do something different. Story Mode throws essentially every animatronic on your nuts all at once. This memory has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy in it. I'll now go over all of their mechanics. Before I dive into the character mechanics, I'll start by mentioning the lamp. Behind you there is a lamp. By turning it on, you calm yourself down. Having the lamp off for too long will lead to you having intense visual and auditory hallucinations before inevitably losing the run. Now, I'll start with Chica since she's by far the easiest to deal with. Chica comes from your closet. There will be a noticeable audio cue when she opens the closet door. When she does, you'll have to turn off your lamp and wait for her to go back into the closet. Personally, I didn't know Chica swang that way, but I think it's pretty sick. Next, I'll go over Bonnie. Bonnie comes from your bedroom door. He will make a notable audio cue like Chica. He will knock on the door 3 times. When you hear this, you'll need to be quick, because you only have so long to react. When you hear the knocks, you'll have to quickly shut your lamp off and lay down in your crib. I should mention that laying down is a mechanic, and if you lay down while Chica's in your room, she'll kill you. After laying down in bed, Bonnie will slam your door open, look around, and then leave the room again, which tells you that it's safe to get back up and turn your lamp back on. Bonnie has this really weird mechanic. I'm not sure if it's a bug or if it's intended. However, a lot of the time, I'd say about 50% at least, when you hear Bonnie knock, he'll never end up coming into the room, which caused me on multiple occasions to shut the lamp off and lay down, only for the sound of Bonnie coming into the room to never play, meaning I end up laying down for way longer than I should, which pretty obviously fucks me over. Next, we'll talk about Freddy. Freddy appears at the window next to your crib. When he does, all you need to do is close the curtains to prevent him from seeing you. After a few moments, you'll hear a quiet sound cue letting you know he's left, and it's free to open your curtains again. But what if you hear Bonnie knocking or Chica coming in while you're holding off Freddy? Well, I'll tell you, you'll just get bread in the butt. So when you shart Bonnie's jizz on the toilet after being bread in the butt, we can talk about Foxy. Oh my god, Foxy. Foxy's under your bed like your weird uncle. Occasionally, you'll hear him scratching his hook on your bedpost. Well, at least, that's what Michael says that he's doing. I personally subscribe to the belief that he's scratching his hook on his big fat stupid balls. When you hear him doing this, you know that he will soon be attacking. A while after the sound cue, you will be able to see Foxy's hook on the back of your bed. When you do, you know you don't have much time left until he attacks, so quickly turn off your lamp, lay down, and close your eyes. Oh yeah, forgot to mention you can close your eyes while laying down. It's just used for Foxy, which is why I didn't say anything. Repeat this ass cycle enough times and congrats, you've beaten the first memory. Only 4 more left to go. The second memory takes place in the living room of the house. In this memory, you play as Scott's wife, Val. We start with a cutscene where Scott tells Val that he's going to make sure Nick is okay, since both of them are pretty uncomfortable with Michael staying in the house, which bodes the question, why the fuck did you even let him in? Regardless, Scott leaves and Val is left alone. This game mode is honestly probably my favorite. I personally feel it is the most terrifying out of the rest. In this memory, rather than being confined to one area like normal FNAF games, you're freely able to move around. Just like in the last memory, you have to survive until 6 a.m. against all 4 main animatronics. Michael tells us that we're fucked and to just hide. Thanks, Michael. Very helpful. Since Michael was no fucking help at all, allow me to explain what it is you're supposed to do on this night. Let's start with Foxy and Freddy. These two act identical to one another, each come down the hallway on one side of the living room. You can check how far away they are by turning the TV on while watching their cameras. Yeah, for some reason Foxy and Freddy have cameras mounted on their faces or something. I'm not really sure, but we don't question it. You can stall one of them at a time by holding down a button. Somehow. I don't really know, guys. I really like this memory, but this part actually makes no sense. Please bear with me. Get it? Bear. Like Freddy. Like Freddy, because Freddy's like Freddy Fazbear. Like he's a bear. Bear with me. Do you get it, guys? Guys, do you get because he's like a bear? You'll notice that Foxy and Freddy both move at the same speed. So if you don't begin stalling one of them, they will reach your room at the same time, which will mean immediate death for you. How do you keep them out? I hear you asking. Well, guess what? You don't. That's right. The animatronics in this night will literally enter the room you are in and try and find you, so you'll need to hide from them when they open the door. The way you hide from Foxy and Freddy is by hiding right next to the door that they'll be opening. The only problem with this is that when you're standing next to one door, you're right in the line of sight for the other, meaning that if you're hiding from Freddy and Foxy opens the door, he'll see you and promptly kill you. This is why stalling one of them is super important, as you'll be able to control and create a pattern at which they will come to the doors. Now let's talk about Bonnie. Along with the two doors that Foxy and Freddy come from, there are also double doors to the living room as well. I really have no idea why there are so many entrances to the living room. This house is a fucking maze. Bonnie doesn't have a camera, so you can't watch him directly. Instead, you'll have to walk over to the double doors and look through the keyhole to see how close he is. Once he gets close enough that you'll be able to smell the grease on his fuzzy nutsack, you just have to hide on either side of the double door and wait for Bonnie to arrive and close the door. Which brings yet another issue. When you're hiding from Bonnie, whichever side of the door you're on will leave you vulnerable to either Freddy or Foxy, so you'll really have to balance and know where Foxy and Freddy are at all times. It's the reason why I really like this memory. I really like micromanagement in games that are both hard but fair. This is why I think 1020 mode in FNAF 2 is such bullshit, because it's actually just not fair, especially Toy Bonnie. Toy Bonnie is the reason why it took me 14 hours to complete that stupid fucking mode. If you want me to make a video talking in detail about why I hate that mode specifically, let me know in the comments below. With Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy being gone over, the only character left to talk about is Chica. Chica is easily the weakest character in this night, very similar to last night. Chica will randomly appear next to one of the windows in the living room. You'll be able to tell because she starts growling? What? She's a fucking chicken. Why would she growl? Whatever, that doesn't matter. When she does, you'll have to get up from the couch. I should have probably mentioned that when you look at the TV to check on Freddy and Foxy, you have to sit down on the couch. I didn't think it was important when I was writing that part of the script, but I just remembered while writing this part, and I'm honestly way too lazy to go back and edit that part of the video to add one sentence. So instead, I opted to add in a whole nother section just to explain why I didn't explain that part of the game before, arguably padding for runtime, even though this video would have been well over 15 minutes without it. Hopefully you enjoyed this section of Dxtr Over Explains. Anyway, when you hear Chica growling, you'll have to stand up from the couch and not move until you hear the growling stop. Once you do, you're free to move again. If you move, Chica will jump scare you, which actually doesn't kill you until the final hour. Instead, it will just send you back to the couch and you won't be able to check the cameras for a while. Chica is easily the weakest part of this memory, as previously stated. She just feels so shallow compared to the other three. I know the other three all do the exact same thing, but they do so in a way that feels interesting. They do so in unison, as even though they do the same thing, they all work together in a way that keeps up the intensity all night. Chica just feels so out of place. After 6 a.m., this memory is over and we can move on to the next one. The next memory takes place in the office where you play as Scott Cawthon himself. This memory starts with Scott going to check on Nick, but of course, we both know what Nick and Val are going through at the moment. Now it's Scott's turn. Scott sees Freddy and starts running. I'm talking haul-assin'. His house starts going batshit crazy and Scott hides in his office. He listens to a tape he left himself on how to defeat the animatronics that he made. I try to wrap my head around this section and the lore implications behind why he was leaving himself recordings, but I'm honestly too tired and way more focused on the gameplay in this game. This night is okay, I guess. It's interesting at the least, and it's very clearly just a large improvement from the first Joy of Creation game. Instead of just spinning in a circle and flashing your light when you find animatronics, you actually instead have to actively search for each animatronic. Let's start with Freddy, since he's both the easiest to deal with and the weirdest overall. Freddy can appear in any of the 4 entrances to the office: the front door, the window, the other window, and the closet. Just like the living room, this memory is free roam, so you'll move around to find the animatronics. When you find Freddy, just flash him with your flashlight and he'll leave. Something very interesting about Freddy that I should note: if left unanswered, Freddy will not kill you throughout the memory. Rather, he acts as a check for the end of it. If you reach 6 a.m. and Freddy is in one of the locations where you could find him, he'll kill you, so you have to make sure that you're really on top of him. I'll talk about Foxy next. On your desk you'll find 3 monitors with cameras. It's been so long, really starting to feel like classic FNAF now. You can look through the cameras on these monitors to find Foxy. When you do, all you have to do is look at him on said cameras. Eventually he'll have a seizure and leave. That's it, pretty simple. But of course, the characters in this game tend to like to work together to make your life more difficult. So that brings me to Bonnie. You can also find Bonnie on the cameras. However, if you see Bonnie on the cameras, make sure not to look at him directly. If you do, he'll punch the shit out of your camera, and you'll no longer be able to look at it for the rest of the memory. Instead, you have to go to the location corresponding to which camera you saw him on and flash him with your light to make him go away. Now we can talk about Chica, who, unlike the last 2 memories, is actually my favorite. So there's this giant fucking hole in the wall of your office. I don't know why. You also don't know why, so we won't question it. Chica will try to fit her big fat hairy ass through it slowly, and I do mean slowly. Slow as fuck. So slow. Once she begins to wriggle and writhe in your hole, pause. Once she begins to shake on your hole, pause. Fuck. Once she begins to force herself through your hole, pause. God damn it. You know what? Once she starts to move, you have to get up and find 3 cupcakes hidden around your room. Once you do, she'll leave. These cupcakes can be hidden in drawers, behind posters, and my favorite, in the fucking garbage. Since it may take you a bit of time to find these cupcakes while working on dealing with the other animatronics, if you look at Chica, she will stop moving, giving you more time to look for the cupcakes. Congrats, you little stinker. Once you hit 6 a.m., if Freddy is gone, you're free to move on to Memory 4. Memory 4 is by far the most different and intuitive. I will say I'm not super sure how it works, so I'm sorry if my explanation is god-awful. In fact, since I'm so nervous I'll be god-awful, I'll let my best friend Markiplier that I mentioned earlier take it away. It's totally going to be him giving a detailed explanation of this memory, and totally not just me doing a montage edit of his playthrough of this memory with a little bit of commentary. Mark, please don't copyright this. We're best friends.
My name is Markiplier. It's time to go into the basement. Whoa.
Kids! Are any of you there? I found your note. Daddy's here. You must be really scared, but I'm here. I created you. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. How is this happening? What are you? What are you?
Ow! Ah, good. Yes, you put me in the shitty toilet. Oh, good. Thank you for that. Why is this in my basement? Oh, okay. All right, then. Am I not going to get any information about this one? Am I just going to be left to my own devices? There seems to be a lot of 6 on the walls here. Oh, hi! Hello? Who are you? Maybe I gotta get through the door. I'm gonna try to sneak over to the bathroom again. Why did I come in here? I didn't need to come in here. Oh! Ah! We come from the fire! I need a cupcake, I need a triangle, I need a swirkly-doo, I need a roll. I don't know what any of those are. Ah! I am in the furnace! There must be like... Oh, what the fuck? Okay, I got a hook! Oh, okay. That's in the furnace now. Well, that's good to know. Okay. No? Alright then. Yee. Okay. Nope, you're still there. Okay, that's a problem. Yeah, I'm right there. Okay, got it. It's gone quiet. What? How does that make sense? We've got 4 more to go, and that one took a while. Many shapes, all similar, but different. Oh, it's a code thing, isn't it? Alright. Ah, wait. Okay, the numbers coincide with the number of creatures. 9632. I'm not sure I'm too happy about this, but there we go. So, Hey! Okay! Oh boy. Oh, hi. Okay. Doop. Be-doop. Be-doop. Oh, that's not good. Yeah. Oh god, it's a code. Of course it's over there. I don't know the code for this one. Bonnie with 4. So Freddy had 3. Bonnie 4. Foxy 2. As it leaves Chica with 1, right? Oh, I see. Okay. They're colored. Okay. Chica first. Foxy second. Ooh. What? Okay. Oh. Oh, I can close it behind me. Alrighty then. Got the key. I don't know! Okay, where am I now? Oh. Pressing forward because I got nothing better to do and I have a funny feeling I'm gonna die. Okay, that's... keep going. Okay, don't look back. I'm not gonna look back. Why would I look back? Okay, I looked back and I don't know what that did, but I did it! Ah! Ah! That's why you don't stupidly look back. Alright, number 2! Oh, that was number 3! Oh, we act, we posed, we played, we stopped, we stared, we scream. Hi, Golden Freddy! Oh, he remains. Oh! What do I do about this? Oh, hi! What the fuck? Oh, hi. Oh my god, okay. Holy shit, I saw that move, man! Ooh. Oh, no door! Oh, we're in no door land. I got a bad feeling about this. Oh, everything's gone. Excuse me. Hello. Oh, it's his computer. Hey, I made it! Simple tricks of the mind or something more sinister? I don't know. I don't know what that means! Bye-bye!
Wasn't that sick? Thank you, Markiplier. Truly my best friend of all time. Finally, it's time to talk about the final memory of this game, which takes place in the attic. In this memory, you play as Scott again. Michael beats your shit up and ties you to a chair in the attic. He tells you that you're gonna burn and die, because fire in Five Nights at Freddy's is like beans on toast to British people. I don't know if I'd call them people though. Gonna be real, don't really give a shit what Michael has to say. I'm much more concerned about the fire in my goddamn house. In this night, you go up against 2 endoskeletons, Golden Freddy, and The Creation. Oh my god, Creation! Like the joy of creation, that's the name of the game. Isn't that so cool? Oh, that's so fucking cool. I'm gonna scrub my nuts on a cactus. Anyway, The Creation is the coolest part of this memory, so I'll cover it last. Let's start with the poopy ass Golden Freddy. Unlike other memories, surviving isn't enough to complete it. Instead, you actively have a task to complete. In this case, you have to find Golden Freddy on your cameras 12 times and shock him. Once you do, you finish the memory. Sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? Wrong, you fucking idiot. It's actually pretty bullshit. Want to know why? Because of The Creation. But I'll get to the poopy ass Creation in a minute. First, I have to talk about the stupid bumbling endoskeletons. So as I was double checking their mechanics, I learned that the endoskeletons are actually called the Fallen. Pretty cool, I suppose, and typing the Fallen is way easier than typing endoskeletons over and over again, so that's what I'll be calling them. In your cameras, you can switch from the house cameras to the attic cameras. It's on these attic cameras where you can see the Fallen. Inside of the attic, there are 2 large doors. Each Fallen will come from one of these doors. When you hear their enormous fat asses trampling down the hall, just make sure you close the door on the correct side of your attic to not have your ass blasted. I should also mention that Golden Freddy can appear in your office all transparent like. I don't really know what happens if he does this, as every time I saw him, I quickly looked away out of habit from FNAF 2. Now we can get to Poop Dog, aka the creation. The creation will start in the basement of your house. As the memory progresses, the creation will make his way through the house and to the attic where you are. Now, I know just by looking at him, you may be thinking, God damn, that robot is really hot. And I agree. However, this is not the character you're going to want to rule 30 for you. He'll bend you like a contortionist, but we both know full well that you can't bend like that, so you'd probably just end up dying. On your cameras, you'll see these 4 markers that represent doors or barriers. As the creation moves, he will break his way through these barriers in an attempt to get to you. You can use your shock to send him back a phase in the cameras, but this brings up an issue. Your shock has a painfully slow recharge time, and if you flash the creation, then you won't be able to flash Golden Freddy to win. Finding the perfect balance between flashing these two is key to defeating this memory. Once you've found and flashed the 12th and final Golden Freddy, the attic memory will be completed. As far as gameplay goes, that's where the Joy of Creation story mode comes to a close. There's multiple other things along with an enormous timeline to dissect, but I'd rather die. I like talking about how the game plays, and in that case, Joy of Creation story mode is top notch. Every single memory plays completely differently, and I think this is the main reason why it's so good. With other fan games and even the originals themselves, you quickly understand what you need to do and can then begin to come up with strategies that allow you to not use certain intended parts of the game. For example, FNAF 2. In FNAF 2, there are a lot of cameras. Like, a lot. However, you only ever need to use one. That's not very interesting when you think about it. You actually have no good reason to ever look at any of the other cameras in the game because the music box is all that matters. Same goes with FNAF 1. The only cameras you have to look at are the right corner cameras to make sure Freddy stays put, and occasionally you'll have to check on Foxy, but if you're playing correctly, you don't even have to look at Foxy in order to win. The Joy of Creation story mode switches up the gameplay loop every night. None of the nights are terribly complex, leaving out the attic, but since you have to learn something new each night, that's not something I have a problem with. I think if you were to take one of these memories from this game and turn it into a standalone game, I wouldn't like the game very much, because repeating formulas just isn't fun in any game. Don't keep repeating yourself, or if you do, make sure that it's repeated in a way that's interesting. For example, Undertale. While that whole game is based around an RPG battle mechanic, every enemy has unique and different attack patterns to learn, and just when you get bored of dodging projectiles, the game switches it up and changes the mechanics and physics of the heart you play as. It's brilliant, and so is this game. I think if more FNAF devs took inspiration for how this game plays out, overall, we would have a lot more fan games that stand out and are fresh and exciting.
When you think of the best FNAF games, what games do you think of? What are your top 5 in terms of quality alone? I'm willing to bet that a lot of people share some of the same entries, and I'm willing to bet that the game we'll be talking about today is at the top of some of your lists, because it's definitely at the top of mine. The Glitched Attraction is a FNAF fan game developed by 2 18-year-old developers alone. The reason I mention their age is because of how impressive this game really is, and how impressive it is that only 2 brand new adults managed to design it themselves. When I first learned how old these guys were, I was shocked. The Glitched Attraction is one of the best FNAF games I've ever played. I know a few of you watch my content to get suggestions for FNAF games to play, and for those of you that do not pass this one up. It is one of the most high-quality experiences of all time. Let's not waste any more time and hop into the Glitched Attraction, FNAF's most high-quality FNAF game ever made. Our game begins with us getting a text from a friend asking us to come check out the new Fazbear Escape Room attraction, and they tell us to bring all of our things along with us, a request that is definitely weird, but since when has weird ever meant bad in a FNAF game before, am I right? So we do just that, pack up all of our things and set out. You heard it here first, the Glitched Attraction is seriously a Five Nights at Freddy's escape room, a concept that sounded so cool I couldn't not check this game out, and I'm glad I did. We arrive at the attraction and two helper bots explain what's going to happen, and then we have to give over everything we have. Why the fuck did we bring everything we own if we're just going to give it to some random robots? This is pretty fishy smelling, and I should know because I haven't showered in 8 weeks. With the general rules explained, we continue onto the first section of the escape room as chipper as we can be. We're kicking our feet and heel clicking and shit, we're so giddy. Not knowing what we're getting ourselves into, we can dive into the first room of the glitched attraction. The first room has us in a room similar in style to the bedroom from Five Nights at Freddy's 4. This room, being the first, isn't very difficult, but let me go over the 4 threats you can find in this room. While you're trying to think, focus, and not be a fuck-up, Nightmare Balloon Boy will be sitting on a chair, because his fat ass wouldn't ever dream of helping anyone, but would instead prefer to sit there and be pointless. But sometimes, he gets a little antsy. You can tell when he's like this because he will visibly seize in his chair until you shine your flashlight at him. It's weird that doing this causes his seizure to stop though, because when I quickly shined a flashlight in my epileptic friend's eyes, he went comatose on the ground and started foaming at the mouth. But to each their own, I guess. If you don't aid in Balloon Boy's assisted suicide, he will jump off the chair and kill you. Something interesting I noted is that Balloon Boy actually makes no noise when he shakes or even when he jumps off of his chair, leading to a majority of his jump scares feeling really awkward. I get why he doesn't make any noise, because it'd be way too easy to not lose track of him, but just something I thought I'd bring up. You'll realize there's a giant window in this room as well, which lets you see outside. Occasionally, you'll be able to see Nightmare Fredbear stalking you from between the trees. Little does he know that his eyes are actually signal beams as bright as those stupid fucking white LEDs that are now being put onto vehicles, so that when I'm driving at night, everybody's headlights look like they have their fucking brights on. So when I flash my brights at them indicating to turn theirs down, then they actually turn their brights on, which simulate what I can only imagine to be the lights of God. And then I feel like an asshole because I just flashed a guy who didn't have their brights on. Sorry to go off on a tangent like that. I just really had to get my frustration about LEDs on cars out of the way, and I really didn't have a good outlet to do so. Anyways, you'll see Fredbear slowly inch closer to your window throughout the challenge, and when he gets super close, you'll have to close the curtains until you hear him laugh, signaling to you that he's gone away, and then you can reopen the curtains. Why on earth do you not just choose to keep the curtains closed for the whole time then? I have no idea. It's not like we need the moonlight to see. The bots at the beginning gave us a fucking flashlight, but whatever, I guess. Speaking of your flashlight, little tiny stupid insignificant Freddles will periodically appear around your room. They make the same noise as they do in FNAF 4, so hearing them shouldn't be a problem, especially considering how god-awful annoying they sound. Shine your flashlight at them and bada bing bada boom, they go away. But if you let 3 stay in your room and assault your eardrums for too long, 2 of them will grab either one of your butt cheeks as the third dives headfirst into your rectum, which some of you sick fucks may find pleasing, but I for one do not. The final threat you have to worry about is Night Marionette. If you somehow, by some miracle, haven't noticed in the footage I've been showing on screen so far, there's a giant hole busted into the wall of the room, which is very poorly boarded up. Why is it boarded up? I hear you asking? Oh yeah, forgot to mention, it's only because, Satan is in there, with enough tentacles to make hentai for the next 9,000 years. But, putting that thought aside, Night Marionette will occasionally give a sound cue to let you know she's there. If you look at the hole, you'll be able to see those sex toys, tentacles, creeping out. At this point, you'll need to make a mad dash to the Golden Freddy suit, which is conveniently placed in the room with you, and hide inside of it. Once you do so for long enough, Night Marionette will leave. Now, hold on. I'm not done talking about this stupid fucking Golden Freddy costume yet. I have some complaining to do, if you could imagine. This Golden Freddy suit takes about, 2 fucking decades to put on. I'm not kidding. You will feel like this game is broken or has paused as you are putting this fucking thing on. But if that wasn't enough, taking it off is somehow even worse. Rather than just exiting the costume, instead, the game thought it would be a great idea to have you teleport out of the costume, where you think you'd be able to continue moving around and interacting with things. But no, that'd be too convenient. Instead, once you teleport out of the costume, you have to just stand there for about 4 seconds doing absolutely nothing. No moving, no using your flashlight, just standing there like a dunce as time still passes around you. While in the Golden Freddy costume, did you happen to notice that Balloon Boy was tweaking out? Okay, cool. Night Marionette's gone. Let's quickly exit the costume and flash Balloon Boy. Oh wait! Instead of flashing Balloon Boy, i.e. saving your own life, let's instead stand there like we have an iron deficiency for 5 fucking minutes as Balloon Boy twerks his fat jiggly ass all over his goddamn chair. I really needed to get that out of my system. Surely I won't have to complain for the rest of the video now, right? Anyways, how do we actually beat this room's challenge? Good question. You'll notice on the wall there's a picture of Freddy broken up into pieces, with each piece facing a different direction. You can turn each piece in order to make the picture look normal again, but you'll notice that one of the pieces is missing. On the dresser, you'll see the FNAF 4 box that Scott Cawthon wiped his ass with. Of course, it has 2 locks. You can find one of the keys to the locks in a drawer on the dresser, and the other key in the drawer of your nightstand. Using both of these keys to unlock the locks on the box, bars, opens it, revealing the last piece of the Freddy puzzle. You can take that piece and put it back in place to finish the puzzle, revealing a 6-digit code. Quick tip, this number is randomized every time you play it, so no fast speedrunning for you, sucker. Going back to the nightstand, you can open a door to reveal a safe. You punch that 6-digit code into the safe, open it, and find a hammer. You can then use this hammer to take the nails off the wooden boards covering the closet door, then open the closet door and escape the bedroom. Do keep in mind that as you are trying to do this, you are getting fucked from all angles by about 179 different pieces of fuck. But overall, I think this is by far the easiest room to complete, which is probably how it should be given the fact that we have a lot more rooms to go through. Speaking of, let's get to the next one. The next room is much larger than the previous. This time there are only 3 threats: Toy Chica, Mangle, and the Cupcake. This room is basically a big circle. Chica will walk around the circle patrolling for you. If you get in her line of sight, she will start to chase you. If she catches you, she will throw the meanest right hook I've ever seen since Muzi. You can hide in any of the several lockers lining the walls, but be aware that not all lockers can open. And if you want to know something super awesome, which lockers open are randomized each time you play. Meaning if you lose a run, some of the lockers you hid in before probably will be locked this time. Isn't that awesome? The Cupcake will also patrol around, but he is much less important. He himself can't end your run, but if you're not watching him and accidentally step on him, he will squeak, causing Chica to be alerted to your exact location. For me personally, I hate this type of mechanics in games. I want to note, I don't think they're bad mechanics, I just don't like them. When there's a puzzle, I would like to be able to focus on the puzzle without having to worry about being chased at the same time. It also doesn't help that I don't handle being chased very well in any game, period. But it definitely doesn't help when I'm trying to focus on solving a puzzle on top of that. Just a me thing. But if that wasn't enough for my poor heart to handle, we have Mangle tacked on top of that. Mangle is hiding in the ceiling throughout the challenge. Occasionally, you will hear vent noises. When you do, that's when you know Mangle is about to drop down on yo ass. She has 2 possible drop locations. If you hear the vent noises on a side of the room that you're not on, you can safely ignore her as long as you don't then move to the side she's on. But if you hear her on a side of the room that you are on, you have 2 options. You can either A, move to the other side of the room, which might be a problem if Chica is over there, or B, hide in a locker. If you don't hide and Mangle happens to see you when she drops down, she will start to chase you. And unlike Chica, when Mangle chases you, there's no way to make her stop. At that point, even hiding in a locker won't be enough to be able to protect your cheeks. So, about the puzzle I was bitching about earlier. You'll notice a large door locked via a pin. The pin is 6 digits long and consists of 6 different symbols. Around the dark room, you'll have to find sticky notes on the walls that correlate each symbol to a number, which will give you the code order needed to unlock the door. If you couldn't have guessed, yes, this is also randomized each time you play. Simply find all the notes, type in the code, and you're done. Come on, you didn't really fall for that, did you? That was way too easy. This is a FNAF game, remember? And according to the FNAF game dev rules, difficulty equals quality. So let's make this as hard as possible. After opening up the door and flipping 4 switches to turn the power to the room on, a whole new world of fuck opens up to us, including a brand new threat, Withered Freddy. Withered Freddy sits inside of a music box, which I find weird because the marionette is literally in this room. I don't know why they didn't just use her for this mechanic, but whatever. Freddy's music box will slowly wind down, and if you don't keep it wound up, he will right hook, shatter the glass, hop out, and chase you. Just like Mango, there's no hiding. If you hide inside of a locker, Freddy will stand outside of it and wait for you to come out. And when you do, you guessed it, he eats your ass. But because the devs of this game hate their players, if you wind Freddy's music box up too much, he will also shatter the glass and then shatter your sphincter. Cool. As if this wasn't hard enough for poor old Dxtr to handle. What do we have to do now? Well, inside of the room you opened, there's some shit on the wall and we need to find some gears to make the contraption work. Again, you will just walk around the room and find all the needed gears and put them back in their place. Once you do, a door on the opposite side of the room will open and you'll have to make a sprint of fate over to it. And then finally, the room is complete. This room isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I actually really like the concept of adding another threat halfway through. I just personally hate it for reasons stated earlier, but that's just a skill issue on my part. Moving on. Do you like complex things? Well boy, do I have a treat for you. The third room challenge is a nightmare. Let's waste no time and do a Tolarian Community College level threat assessment. This room has 4 threats: Springtrap, Dreadbear, Phantom Foxy, and Phantom Balloon Boy. Phantom Balloon Boy is simple, so let's cover him first. He works just as he does in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. He can randomly appear on any of the cameras. If you look at him on the camera for too long, he will jump scare you and cause a video error. Except the video error in this game just means that the camera he jump scared you on can never be used again for the rest of the run, which I promise you is a very bad thing, and the reason will be revealed later. Phantom Foxy can appear in any of the 2 doors connecting to your office. If you look at him for too long, he will charge at you and jump scare you, causing a level of hallucinations to appear. If too many levels of hallucinations appear at once, it's game over. Now, let's talk about the real threats of this night: Springtrap and Dreadbear. Dreadbear can be seen on the cameras and will attack either one of your doors. Do note that you can close these doors and they each have their own power supply. But Dreadbear is unaffected by the doors and will break them down if they're in his way. You'll have to watch the cameras to see which door he will be attacking, and when you see him charging towards one, you will have to hide under the desk on the opposite side of the desk to where he is coming from in order to stay out of his line of sight when he enters your office. Eventually, he will leave and you'll be safe to come back out. Springtrap is a goofy little thing, to say the least. Springtrap will climb through any of 3 vents, which you can see on the cameras. 2 vents bring him to your respective office doors, and the 3rd leads to the vent that is directly above you. If you see Springtrap climbing through a door vent, you will have to simply close the door to the side he's going towards. If you see him climbing through a vent that brings him to the top of your office, you'll need to quickly turn off the power to the office and hide under your desk. He'll drop down, and once he can't see you because the lights are off, he will leave. You got all that down? Good. Because we have a whole load more of fuck to talk about next. That being, how do we escape this room? Well, the goal is to open a tiny vent near the ground beneath the TV screen. To start, you'll want to check near the desk to look for a code. It's random every time, and where it appears next to the desk is also random every time, so have fun. Once you get the code, you head over to the TV screen and press developer mode, and then type in the code you found in your office. This lets you activate developer mode, which opens up a door on the wall revealing a token. Keep in mind, all of the threats are active at this time. Using the token, you pop that puppy into the big arcade machine in your office, which promptly starts up a game. That's right, while defending yourself from an onslaught of fuck, you will also have to play an entirely other game at the same time. The game in question, Save the Children, is really just a bunch of fetch quests. To start, you'll talk to Balloon Boy, who is fishing and says he needs some balloons. By the way, if you couldn't have guessed, all of the items that you'll be collecting in this minigame will be in a random location every time you play. Because God hates you. When you bring the balloons back to Balloon Boy, he will give you one of the fish he caught. Then you need to find Old Man Consequences and give him the fish, since the pond he's fishing in doesn't have any. Once you give him the fish, he gives you a lily pad for some fucking reason. Don't question it. We don't have time to question it because I neglected to mention there's a fire spreading through the building as you're escaping, and if you take too long, it will reach your office and kill you. No, I'm not joking. Oh, and again, Keep in mind, all of the threats I mentioned are still pulverizing your butthole. Once you have the lily pad, you'll take it back to Balloon Boy's pond and use it as a bridge to talk to this fucking robot thing. The robot says its watch is broken, so fuck you, go look for a clock. Once you find the clock and bring it back to the robot, he gives you a penguin, I think is what that thing is. Then you take the penguin over to Lolbit, who gives you a key to unlock a gate, which then leads you to an area where you need to unlock another gate. Yes, this minigame is still happening right now. You spelunk into a cave and talk to some dude who thinks the cave is too dark. You then have to leave the cave and go look for a torch, head all the way back and give the torch to him. He will then give you a key to unlock the other gate. And when you do, you'll exit the area, leading to a William Afton cutscene where he goes sicko mode inside of his Springlock suit. And finally, you have to sit there and wait as the game reboots. Again, we're on a time crunch, so your butthole will probably be puckered at this point. Again, threats are still up the wazoo right now, so don't get comfortable. Once the system reboots, you'll get another 5-digit code which you can use to unlock a box on the office desk which reveals a key. You then use the key on a keyhole in the fucking wall for some reason, and at this point, no matter how much time you have left, the game will start to count down from 6. Once the fire reaches your office, the small vent I mentioned at the beginning of this room will finally open, and you'll be free to crawl through it, but not before Springtrap lunges out and grabs your ankle with lust in his eyes and shit. You quickly close the vent and decapitate that bitch, and finally, you complete the room. Holy shit, this room gave me a panic attack and made me shart my pants. Shall we begrudgingly move on to the next room? I think so. Let's keep this gravy train rolling. Do you enjoy having headaches? If you do, this next room is for you. Let's go over it together. I'll hold your hand. This room is made up of 2 hallways, 2 windows, and a bunch of screens, a small elevator, and a life-size 7-foot-tall circus baby animatronic. The goal of this room is to put baby back together, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first go over the threats this room has to offer. The first threat is Ballora. At times you will hear her music box begin to play. Depending on which side of the room you hear the music coming from, you'll need to go over to that side's hallway and press an electric shock button that will electrify the doorway, shocking Ballora and making her go away. If she gets in, I'm guessing you can figure out what happens next. Ballora is the easiest threat. What else is there? Well, the 2 other threats are Funtime Foxy and Funtime Freddy. Occasionally, you will hear a gurgling sound cue, letting you know something is wrong with either Foxy or Freddy. You will have to run over to the windows and turn on the light to their room to see where they are. Starting with Foxy, if you see him doing the thug shaker on stage, you just press his shock button, and he will go back to how he's supposed to be. Be careful though, if you shock him too many times for no reason, he'll eat your ass like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Freddy, on the other hand, is slightly different. His light button doesn't work. Similar to Sister Location, while looking at him, occasionally sparks will fly out of the wires in his room, briefly illuminating. In this small window of time, you'll be able to see where Freddy is located. He will slowly make his way towards the window, and if he gets too close, you guessed it, ass in his mouth, eating it like a cupcake. If you see Freddy getting too close for comfort, you press the tape symbol button, which will make Bon Bon tell Freddy to get the fuck back on stage. And he promptly will. Again, like Foxy, if you push the tape button too many times for no reason, it's time for the bite of 87 on your asshole. Now, back to putting Baby back together to complete the night. You'll notice that Baby is missing both arms and both legs. The first thing you'll need to do is find the Baby chip hidden on the desk somewhere and plug it into the monitor. For some reason, we don't plug it into a computer, but I guess that's not really important now, is it? Once the monitor comes on, we need to call for Baby's different pieces, starting with her arm. The general goal is to get each piece of her delivered and then fuse each of them to her body. Before I get to the fusing part of this process, let me bitch about the delivery process. So obviously, delivering the parts will take time, which isn't what we want because, as usual, we're on a timer here. And because of it, the devs thought it would be oh so funny to have some of the pieces come in broken. And once you put them on and try to fuse them, only then it will tell you it is broken and won't work. And you'll have to take the piece back off, return it, which also takes time, and then order and wait for another piece to be delivered. Why was this necessary, guys? What neuron fired off in your brain that made you think, how can I be Satan today? Anyways, let's talk about fusing, because this is really where the headache of this challenge comes into play. starting with fusing the head, which for some reason wasn't already fused on, even though the challenge started with her head already being on her body. In order to fuse baby's body parts back to her torso, you have to complete a small minigame. For her head, it's basically just Simon Says, but with numbers instead of colors. But don't worry, the devs weren't just being nice and thinking about colorblind people. We'll get to that in just a minute. This is by far the easiest and least time-consuming part to fuse, but if you mess up a pattern once, you'll have to completely restart the head fusing process. Let's move on to her arms. The minigame for both arms are the same. The goal of this minigame is to divert power from the left side of the screen to the right. You do this by turning a bunch of 90-degree lines and 180-degree lines in order to make a consistent path from left to right. This sounds easy, but holy fucking shit, knowing you're on a time crunch and dealing with 30 pounds of dick in your ass at the same time definitely doesn't make this a smooth process. Do that for both arms and you're on to legs, the part that makes people like me want to die. In order to fuse the legs, you have to play a color matching game. You will see 2 grids of colors, one grid where you can change the colors and on the other you cannot. You have to copy it. Let's get the big elephant out of the room. If you're colorblind or deficient like I am, this challenge is borderline impossible. I'm lucky enough to not be completely colorblind, or I would never have beaten this in my entire life. But not only that, but the grid each time has a missing square, as I'm sure you've noticed, but I'm also sure you've noticed that missing square on your side and the missing square on the side you're supposed to copy are in different locations. That's because they rotated the fucking grid. Talk about a headache, am I right? Maybe I'm just brain dead when it comes to this, but trying to comprehend where each color should go when it's rotated was just not a fun experience at all. I'm not even going to lie to you. But once you finally finish fusing all of baby's pieces back together, a voice will come over the speakers telling you that all of the animatronics have been deactivated, and that you should exit through the hall on your right. When you do, you'll be led to the sister location elevator. Getting inside, it will slowly descend and then stop. You'll hear something laughing at you for a while, and then the elevator will suddenly drop and you die. The end. Game over. Okay, not really. That's just the transition to the next room. Are you ready? Because I sure as fuck aren't. Why did we agree to come to this place? It makes no sense. How does this place even exist? I could have died a solid 276 times at this point, and we're not even done yet. Someone needs to get this place investigated by the FBI because this is some bullshit. What a waste of a Saturday, am I right? Anyways, let's move on. After laying on the floor for approximately 8 days, we finally wake up from the fallen elevator. We walk past a large window and see the characters we just went up against. After the events of the last room, these little tiny robot things apparently grabbed all of the characters to bring them to the scooping room. And this room is presumably that. While we look across the floor of once familiar corpses, the bane of my existence and the shit in my diaper emerges from the tangled mess of wires. Ennard. This guy is the single reason why it took me so long to make this video. Why it took me a month to beat this game. For most, it certainly wouldn't have taken this long, but for me, oh my lord, this next room will give me flashbacks like Charlie in the Trees for the next 5 decades. And possibly until I reach my grave. Remember the second room? How I mentioned I don't handle being chased very well? This room made me question if I would be able to continue making videos on this channel, or if I would have to jump ships to another genre to make review videos about. I'm not kidding, not even a little bit. I originally intended to beat this game on stream on Dxtr Black, and you can still see my first stream about this game where I gave up on room 2. Well, for the people who tuned into that stream, know now I didn't give up. But you should also be grateful that I didn't stream this entire process because I spent tens of hours trying to beat this next room alone. Let me explain why. Room 5 is the epitome of everything I hate in a horror game. Literally all the way down to the last detail. I'll give you a warning right now. This is 100% a me problem and is totally my subjective opinion. So, the only threat in this room is Ennard. Thankfully, there aren't any more, but dear lord, Ennard is all it needs. In terms of where we are story-wise, the elevator crashing was definitely not intended to happen. as upon beginning this room, we don't get a monitor telling us what our goals are. This is cool as a passing thought, but it's not really cool when you stop to think that there is absolutely nothing to explain what it is I need to do to complete the challenge. Upon beginning, we're given a wind to power flashlight and some writing on the wall telling us to light up a solar panel using the flashlight. Now, I'm already going to pause real quick. We're being shown a new mechanic, the wind up flashlight and solar panel. Cool. Now tell me, do you suspect we need to light up solar panels ever again in this entire challenge? Or the entire game? I'm assuming you said yes, but you'd be completely wrong. No, there's not a single other solar panel in this entire game. So please, tell me, why the fuck were we shown this? Showing us the flashlight makes sense, but there were countless other ways to do it in a much better way than showing us another mechanic that is never used again. This is exactly like the gun in Muzi. But continuing, once we light the solar panel, a large door opens and the challenge truly begins. The overall goal of this challenge is probably the easiest we've seen so far. It's broken up into 5 distinct tasks. Step 1, find a crowbar. Step 2, use the crowbar to force open a drawer near Kyle's desk to get a keycard. Step 3, use Kyle's keycard to open a door, allowing you to turn a generator on that powers computer monitors throughout the room. Step 4, find all 3 computers and input 3 colored fuses into each. The fuses are conveniently placed in boxes right next to the computers, so I appreciate that. And step 5, go back to the generator and turn on the central power, which opens the door, allowing you to climb a ladder and beat the challenge. Sounds simple, right? Well, yes. It is simple, but now I need to talk about the problem. Ennard. Ennard will be patrolling the giant maze of a room the entire time you are performing these tasks. If he sees you, he will begin to chase you. If you get caught, you will lose all progress you've made throughout the challenge. Let me tell you another fact. Unlike every room in this game so far, this room ain't small. No, this room is very fucking large. I hate everything about life. Let me complain about some more stuff. If you are near Ennard, he will hear you and be alerted to you if you do the following. Wind up the flashlight. Makes sense. It's really loud. I can understand that one. If you run. Okay, yeah. I've seen that in other games before. Running is louder than walking is, and walking. That's right. If you move, period, while he is anywhere remotely close to you, he will hear you and start to chase you. What the fuck? And once he starts chasing you, there's only 2 ways to get him to stop. The devs must have been smoking crack and playing Dead by Daylight while they were designing this section, because one of the methods used to escape an Ennard chase is by knocking over wood pallets placed around the room. Quickly break the pallets and continue to chase you if you don't hot bottom out of there at light speed. What's the second way of escaping a chase? I hear you asking? Well, it's by stunning Ennard. How do you stun Ennard? I hear you asking again. That's a great question. I have no fucking idea. I'm not joking. I literally have no fucking clue on earth how, on God's green fuck, you're supposed to stun Ennard. How do I know you can stun him? Well, every time you die, which, judging by the fact it took me borderline a month to beat this challenge, I did quite frequently, you will get a tip on the loading screen. One of these tips tells you that stunning Ennard will give you more time to run away than knocking over a pallet will. So I know you can, but the game doesn't elaborate on how to do that as far as I'm aware. So to this day, I still have no idea how to stun Ennard. I don't know what the hell the game is talking about. I'm stumped. But I'm not even close to done talking about this section of the game. No. I spent a fucking month on this. I can dedicate a few pages of my script to it. You can sit down and listen. I don't care if this video ends up being an hour long. You see, there is a very large, steaming hot, glaring issue with this challenge in specific. Since it's technically not a part of the canonical attraction, there's no tip screen at the beginning. But with no tip screen, there's no telling anyone fuck about fuck. So, as I said, there are 3 computers around the level. Each computer has a box of fuses with differently colored patterns on them right next to them. Each computer requires 3 different fuses. How do you figure out which fuses go where? Well, at first I looked at the colors of the wires going into the computer. I thought, maybe this will give me a hint as to what I'm supposed to do. So I tried to grab the fuses out of the box, but I couldn't. So then I thought, oh, maybe these aren't the fuses, and the actual fuses are randomly placed around the map. So I went to look. I looked, and I looked, and I looked, but I never found any fuses. Eventually, I died for probably the 48,000th time to see a tip appear on my screen. You won't be able to pick up fuses until you turn on the monitors. You didn't think to tell me that? You didn't think that was important information to give out earlier? This is why we need the fucking tip screen, asshole. But fuck me, whatever, sure. So then I started trying to figure out how to turn the monitors on. I tried seeing if I could press the buttons on the monitors, but that didn't work, so then I decided to try and find something else to do. Eventually, I found a note next to a door mentioning that Kyle leaves a keycard in his desk to open said door. Okay, cool. Something to do has just fallen into my lap. Let's go find Kyle's desk. Luckily for me, desks are in the same location every time you play, so we don't have to worry about those being randomized. After looking for a very long time, because again, I don't handle being chased well at all, it's like I fucking lock up and start freezing. I don't know what's wrong with me, I just can't handle it. So, most of the gameplay boiled down to me moving incredibly slowly and taking way more time than I ever needed to complete this challenge. But that's how I personally had to do this if I wanted to play it myself, which is also why the footage you're watching right now isn't mine. Thank you, Kono and Indie Fuel. I eventually find Kyle's desk to then find another note from Kyle mentioning that you need a crowbar to be able to open his drawer with the keycard in it. Fuck me. So, after searching for another 100 years, I find the crowbar on a desk and use it to open the drawer to get the keycard. 400 hours and 2,000 deaths later, I use the keycard to open the door and find the generator inside. Flip the switch and boom, the computers are now on. Now, 5,000 deaths later, I finally get to the point where I can pick up the fuses and match the correct fuses to the ones shown on the screen. After 25,000 deaths, I managed to correctly match the fuses of all three computers. Keep in mind, every time I die, I have to completely restart this entire process, all the way back to shining the flashlight at the solar panel. I'm on the verge of death. So finally, I make it back to the generator to turn it on and finish this godforsaken challenge. And I do, expecting the door next to it to open. It doesn't. Come in real close for me. Come in real close. This fucking door needs a separate key that spawns randomly in the level. I'm going to clench my teeth together so hard that they shatter into a fine powder. This right here is what took me the longest. So finally, after 100,000 deaths, I finally get the key to the generator to unlock the door. Come on real close again for me, real close, one more time. Take a guess what's in this room. Is it the exit to let me move on to the next challenge? No, it's just fucking lore. I didn't know this while I was playing. I don't watch videos about the games I play, so I had no idea what was behind this fucking door. I know that's 100% my fault, but dear God, when I tell you how fucking pissed I was when I finally figured out this after hours upon hours of attempts, I was fucking livid. I wish I was recording my attempts so I could show you my reaction. You wanna know what happened after a reasonable crash out in this room? Ennard fucking walked in and killed me, making me start from the beginning again. Once again, I wasn't recording. However, this exact same thing happened to Markiplier, so I'll show you footage of this happening to him instead.
Good. I was about to say, if that guy could have come in here, I would have been so mad. How could you ever get me in here?
The amount of vulgarities that emerged from my lungs at a speed of Mach 50 in that moment was astronomical. Enough to shake trees and shatter the sound barrier. I was fucking livid. But again, I know full well that this entire section, this entire 4 pages of my script is an experience that only I have had. Nobody else on Earth struggled with this challenge as much as I did. Nobody in history has ever spent a calendar month pouring attempts into this section of a game that should only take 20 minutes to complete. I know it's a skill issue, and a very hard skill issue at that, but I could not, under any circumstance, neglect to mention how bullshit of an experience I had. I hope you enjoyed this segment. I eventually found the door to the generator, opened it, and climbed up the ladder into the next challenge of this godforsaken fuck-ass game. From one anxiety attack to another, let's talk about room 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's how many threats we have to talk about in this level. Awesome segue, Dxtr. Thanks, Dxtr. The first threat we'll talk about is Molten Freddy. Molten Freddy can appear in one of 2 vents occasionally. When you hear or see him in one, you'll have to break your mouse and spam click a lever in the vent to blind him with a light more powerful than the sun. Every time you flash him, he gets slightly pushed back, which leads to you spending an infuriating amount of time spamming the fucking lever to make him go away. The next threat is Scrap Baby. As I'm sure you've noticed, we're locked inside a fenced area. On the outside of the fence is a forest, and occasionally you'll be able to see Baby limping her way out from between the trees towards your fence. When she gets to the fence, she'll hop that shit like an Olympic athlete and fuck your shit up. To stop her, you must go to this random screen in the wall and activate the repel system, which plays the most ear-piercing sound I've ever heard in my entire life. So I totally understand why that makes Baby go away. The final threat is Scrap Trap, who in my opinion is the stupidest looking FNAF character ever designed. You can see Scrap Trap sitting on a chair down a long hallway. You must watch him closely as he will slowly start to move until his head is eventually in an upright position. When it is, you must use the same screen you used for Baby, but instead close the door and use the call system to lure him to you. After waiting what will feel like an eternity, you will be able to hear him stand up from the chair and sprint like Usain Bolt towards the door, and pound on it like he's on speed. Then he will go back to the chair and you can open the door and turn off the call system. By the way, the call system is also the worst sound I've ever heard in my whole life. Thank you for asking. That may not sound all bad, but having to deal with all three of these fuckers and do the other bullshit we have to do, I promise it will become difficult to manage. So what is it we have to do? Well, the goal is to remove the chains from a fence gate so that we can open it. Simple enough. To start, you'll notice another screen different from the one used to defend yourself. On it, you'll find the opening minigame from Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator. You will need to complete 4 levels of this game, which in and of itself isn't a hard challenge, but when the music is pretty loud, listening for the other characters can be a problem, especially when Scrap Trap doesn't make any noise until it's already too late. After beating this game, you will unlock a prize that we can't access at this moment, so we'll get back to it in a second. Afterwards, you'll need to look around your surroundings to find 2 pieces of paper with a number ranging from 1 to 3 on them, accompanied by a silhouette of a FNAF character. You can use these pieces of paper to input a code into this little toy thing. I don't know what this thing is if I'm being honest. You only need 2 pieces of the code because you can just brute force the last one. After getting the code correct, a key will emerge. Take that key and run down the hall and unlock a door to the right of Scrap Trap. This is personally where I think this level gets specifically hard, since we'll be spending most of our time in here now, meaning we won't be able to hear Scrap Trap and Molten Freddy. So if you forget to check on them, it's basically GG's. Inside this new room, we can finally obtain the prize we got from beating the Pizzeria Simulator minigame, a Faz coin. You'll notice a projector that's projecting a cut-up piece of paper on the wall. If you pull a lever on the same wall, this tiny little Freddy I can't remember the name of will try to read the projection. But he obviously won't be able to do so because it's only a small piece of a paper, you fucking idiot. Using the Faz coin, you can go back into Scrap Trap's room and insert it into Rockstar Freddy's stomach, and then press 3 buttons on his body in an order listed on a piece of paper. This makes sense, by the way. This will cause his mouth to open, revealing the other pieces of paper you need. Slap those bitches on the projector and put them together like a puzzle, which, side note, is a pain in the ass for no reason. The controls are super janky. Slap the lever with your big Coke can penis, and have bitch Freddy read it. When he does, a door next to Rockstar Freddy will open with some bolt cutters inside. You can use these bolt cutters to cut the chains off of the fence and escape this level. This level might not seem as difficult as some of the other ones have, and while none of these levels are particularly difficult in terms of what you literally have to do, all of the levels, and this one specifically, build up so much stress and really test your nerve control. After jumping down some weird looking cellar door, we enter a new room with a computer in it. It shows an error that it detected human movement. Obviously, we just entered the room, of course. While reading through the files on the computer that detail a plan to revive someone through our corpse, another human detection error shows up on screen. Knowing that we haven't moved, we turn around and get our shit smacked up by Vanny and get knocked out. Fun fact, you can actually spot Vanny spying on you in almost every other level in the game if you're looking closely enough. Just something cool I thought I'd bring up. We wake up to Vanny dragging us into an unknown room. And rather than me explaining what happens next, I'd rather just show you. Afterwards, we walk through what appears to be memories of the Bite of 87 events, and the game comes to a close. So, from a lore perspective, we were lured to this attraction by Vanny. You may remember at the beginning of the game we got a text from a friend telling us how cool this attraction is, and in the secret lore room, which turns out to be Vanny's secret room, she has a whiteboard full of steps on how to use remnants. One of the steps involves sending a message to someone, seemingly to lure them in, and what do you know, we got a message to come here. Also in that secret room is a tape that can be watched going over how to extract remnant from people. So what the goal seemingly was, using my enormous brain of theorization, the plan was to lure us to the attraction, extract remnant from us in order to give power to William Afton, which is what we are seeing happen in the final cutscene. Case closed, I'm a genius. But as far as I'm aware, that's all the glitched attraction has to offer. Although this game put me through 4 brain aneurysms and a heart attack, I still think it is one of the most impressive FNAF fan games ever made. The amount of detail, skill, and effort put into this is only matched by the other kings of FNAF games, and that cannot go overlooked. I highly suggest you give this game a try, even if you think it's too hard. I don't think you'll regret it. I just really hope they add in a feature to get rid of the nauseating head bobbing because, holy shit, I almost threw up multiple times playing this.
A plot twist is a literary technique that introduces a radical change in the direction or expected outcome of the plot in a work of fiction. Now tell me, can you think of a horror game that pulls off an insane twist? Maybe Resident Evil 8 in its crazy twist comes to mind. Now let me ask you another question. Can you name a FNAF game with a crazy twist? A twist so cool you have to sit back and think, wow, that was pretty sick. The game I'll be covering today has one of those twists, and I'm incredibly excited to share with you the amazing experience I had while playing Showman's The Awakening. For those of you already familiar with this game, you may know that it actually has a game that came before it. Kinda. Years ago, the same developer released a game called Phobia: The Awakening, using the Wiggles as inspiration for the characters. Well, turns out the dev wanted to remake their game using their own original characters to continue the story, so now here we are with Showman's. This may lead you to ask the question, if I've already played Phobia, is there even a point to playing Showman's? And trust me, this is a question I've asked myself. Originally, I saw people asking me to play Showman's. I played Phobia on my second channel, Dxtr Black, not knowing at the time that Showman's was a thing, learning soon after the first episode went up that it was in fact a thing. So I questioned, does it even bother to play it? Well, recently I've made the decision to do exactly that and give Showman's a try. And let's just say, if you've played Phobia, play Showman's. It's everything Phobia is and more. So join me as we quake our asses into Showman's The Awakening. In Showman's, we play as a guy named Mark Ward, an employee of Showman's Pizza Place. And in night 1, we're introduced to 2 of the animatronics that will be trying to insert their fingers into orifices we'd really prefer they keep their grubby little hands away from. But before we can talk about them, we should talk about the tools at our disposal. Something really interesting you'll notice about the office is that you're able to look everywhere. Up, down, left, right, behind you, below you. It's actually really cool. It's really the first thing I noticed jumping into the game. The reason for this is actually because Showman's wasn't created in ClickTeam Fusion like most FNAF games are. Instead, it was created in Blender, which is what most FNAF games use to model their characters, and is something I also had no idea could be used to program a game. So that was pretty cool learning for the first time. Anyways, you'll see 2 large hallways on your left and right, which you can light up using buttons on your desk. In front of you is this lady. Hey, hottie. She's not hot, I'm not even gonna lie, she's not even bad. Who we'll be talking about later in the video. And if you look behind you, you'll be able to see the clock where you can tell how much longer of the night you have to get through. Oh yeah, and of course, there's cameras, because it really wouldn't be a FNAF game without those. With that out of the way, now we can talk about the first 2 threats this game introduces, Johnny and Harry. Now I know, those names aren't very normal sounding when thinking in terms of Five Nights at Freddy's, when usually we're having names so utterly stupid you'd be forced to think they were a fictional character. But no, these 2 are still robots, and you still cannot have intercourse with them, so please remove all thoughts of that nature from your head for the remainder of this video. Johnny and Harry both start from the show stage and do the exact same thing. Johnny will move through the cameras to your right hallway, and Harry will move through your left hallway, where they will then enter what I'm going to be calling their attack mode. During their attack mode, they have 5 phases. Each phase has a sound cue, and it's important that you're listening for them. With each phase, they'll move closer and closer towards your office, with the final phase having them walk up to you. Obviously, you can check their distance by flashing the light at them, and by doing so, you will also temporarily stun them in place. However, I would highly recommend you don't turn the lights on when they're in the hall, as I personally feel it's much more efficient to just let them attack you so they can piss off as fast as possible. Every time Johnny or Harry enters a new phase, their eyes will glow for a short time after their sound cue plays. So when you hear it, you can just turn in the direction to double check that they've moved. On these earlier nights, you really don't have to be super careful with them. Flashing lights and not counting sound cues isn't really important since they're your only threats. So I'll get into a bit of a better strategy for them later on. However, once they enter your office, you'll have to quickly throw on a spare mask to fool them into walking away, just like the animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And that's really it. Night 1 is pretty damn easy, really just introducing the basics needed to understand 2 very important mechanics. After beating Night 1, we see a cutscene, something that was not originally in Phobia. In it, we meet with the founder of Showman's Jason Baker. He confirms with us that only Johnny and Harry were active on our shift, and we confirm. Apparently, this should not be happening, and it's a known issue. So that's good at least. Jason tells us that a previous employee mentioned more characters moving, which in all honesty doesn't bode well for my anus, given the fact we still have 5 more nights of this to deal with. But we get our things and go home for the night, only to come back to work in the morning. Night 2 introduces 2 new animatronics, and let me tell you, this is where the game starts to show how much of a pain in the dick it's about to become. The first character we should talk about is the fine shite sitting in front of us, Peggy. Peggy reminds me a lot of the scrapped animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, just given the fact of the way she moves subtly like them. She also reminds me a lot of what Anissa's husband really doesn't want her to do to him. Whenever you're not looking at her, whether that be checking on the cameras, looking at the hallways, or checking the clock behind you, Peggy has a chance to advance phases. You'll be able to see her start by looking down and slowly transfer through the phases until she's ready to attack. In order to reset her, all you have to do is flip the breaker switch on your desk to shock her and she'll reset. But be careful not to just spam this lever over and over, because every time you shock her, she becomes more aggressive, leading to the end of nights becoming incredibly stressful due to how fast she'll be attacking you. Cap'n Cackle is the other menace introduced on Night 2. He is this game's Foxy. If you couldn't tell by looking at him, he's a pirate, just like Foxy. Also, he looks like he's cracked out of his fucking mind, zooted to the fucking moon. Seriously, look at this geeked out motherfucker. Holy shit, bro hasn't slept in 18 days. Look at those eye bags. What the hell happened? Stop looking at me, dude. Tell me that guy doesn't smoke crystal meth. Look at those fucking eyes. What are you doing? Hey. That's the face I make when I'm about to eat ass, bro. Anyways, similar to Foxy, he'll have several phases on camera 6. Watching him will slow his progression and even in some cases make him go backwards. If he happens to leave camera 6, he doesn't do exactly what Foxy does. Instead, he'll just start moving through your cameras like any other character would, albeit very quickly. If you manage to stare at him in one of those other cameras, he will go back to camera 6, where you can continue oogling at him to make him stay put. Both Peggy and Cap'n Cackle work very well together, and the same goes for Johnny and Harry. We have 2 other central characters left to introduce, and you'll notice that those 2 also work very well in tandem with one another. This is something I need to give this game praise for. It is so incredibly good at introducing new mechanics in a way that's stressful, yet engaging and fun. You introduce Peggy, a character that moves when you don't look at her, and Cap'n Cackle, another character who moves when you're not looking at him. And because these 2 characters are in different places, it forces you to learn how to balance them together. God, it's so fucking cool. Similar to last night, this night also has a cutscene after completion. In it, we're seen walking to the exit of the building. We hear a noise and quickly turn around to see an unknown animatronic staring back at us. It stares for a while before turning around and walking away. This is a character we haven't yet seen. Even the characters we'll be talking about on later nights can be seen on the cameras all the time, but this one can't. Keep him in the back of your head as he'll become important later. For now, let's move on to Night 3. Night 3 only introduces one character, but it also introduces another incredibly important mechanic, that being your vents. The animatronic introduced on Night 3 is Tony the Chef. He will enter your vents. You'll notice on your cameras that you have 3 camera vents. Tony can enter 2 of them, those being either camera 12 or camera 11. In these vents, he will have multiple phases he will move through before attempting to enter your office. With each movement, a very quiet sound cue will play, a stark contrast to Phobia where the sound cue was very noticeable. By double-clicking on a vent cam, you can lock the vent. Locking a vent uses no power because the game has no power to begin with. Praise God. Once a vent is closed, you can keep it closed as long as you'd like, with no consequences. The only downside is that you can only close one vent at a time. So this night really isn't all too different from Night 2. Well, now's the time when I want to talk about sound cue counting with Johnny and Harry, as it's this night where you'll probably want to start getting used to doing that. As I mentioned earlier, Johnny and Harry each have 5 different phases in your hallway. The first is when they initially enter the hallway. You'll be able to tell because you can see their eyes in the hallway for a brief moment, and because you'll be able to hear their big ol' feet stomping around, kind of like I want Toy Chica to stomp on my testicles. Once one of them enters your hallway, you can stop checking on them and focus on listening. Start a mental count of 3 in your head. All sounds in this game are directional, so that really helps. Whenever you hear footsteps on either side of you, decrease that side's number by 1. Once the counter reaches 0, you know that the next time you hear footsteps from that side is when they'll walk into your office to attack. Okay, 4 left, or 3 till he's at the last stage. 2 left until he hits door. Okay, 1 more. And he's at the line. He's walking the thin line. 1 more. I want to see how close I can cut it. Hi. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that. Doing this while they're both attacking you at the same time can get a little overwhelming, and on later nights they do like to attack together a lot. But if you can nail this counting strategy, they really shouldn't be too much of an issue. After completing Night 3, we get to watch another lovely cutscene. In it, we're looking through the factory for who the fuck knows what. We open a crate and find a Johnny plush inside. Seeing this toy seems to trigger some primal instinct in us, and we pass the fuck out. Honestly, bro, probably not the greatest place to lose consciousness, I'm not even gonna front. We awake in another room, only to look up and see Showman. Scared as shit, we wake up from our slumber only to realize it was a short dream we had after we had passed out. There is clearly something mentally wrong with our dear, beloved Mark. We just have to figure out what it is. Night 4 introduces the man himself, Showman. Showman works in perfect tandem with Tony, also attacking your vents. Although, unlike Tony, Showman can only attack your camera 13 vent. However, he also fucking loves to do this at the same time that Tony is jumping penis first into your vents. Showman only has 3 phases in the vent before attacking, so notably faster than Tony. So while both of them are attacking your vent, you really have to be counting their positions to figure out whose vent you need to close first, because once again, you can only have one closed at a time. If one of those fuckers get into your office, they're gonna crank that soldier boy and clock you in the jaw. I'm just gonna go ahead and put this on and hope to God. Okay, so it didn't work. I couldn't tell which one was closer, bro. I thought the guy I had blocked off was closer. I couldn't tell. All in all, each character is incredibly easy to deal with, but because of how perfectly they all work together, it can lead to an incredibly stressful experience trying to play against all of them at the same time. However, never at any point throughout my playthrough did I feel like this game was unfair or that RNG was too much of a factor. This game, dare I say it, might have borderline perfect video game balancing. After completing Night 4, of course, we get another cutscene. This one taking place before we go to work for the night. Before we enter our car, we get a call from Jason, telling us not to come in to work tonight. He says things are getting too dangerous and that it would be unsafe for us to go through our shift. We agree to not go in tonight, except the plot twist is that I fucking lied and we're gonna go in anyways, because we hate authority like a 16-year-old white boy from the suburbs. On night 5, we get a call from the phone guy, and let me tell you, he is absolutely pissed that we decided to come in for the night. He explains that anything in that building that moves will be demolished in the morning. He tells us to do whatever it is we're trying to do and get out, because they're not going to send anyone into the building to get us out. Other than that, night 5 is exactly what you'd think it is, just a much more difficult version of night 4, really testing your reflexes and especially your nerve control. But on this night is when I have to bring up really the only problem I have with this game: volume. This game is actually the loudest fucking game on planet Earth. Holy shit, everything makes noise, and it makes a damn lot of it at that. There are typically ambient sounds in FNAF games, but for the love of God, this game plays intense music throughout most of the night, and it is loud as dick and balls. Want to hear the best part? As you get closer and closer to 6 a.m., the music adds more components and gets even fucking louder! This really doesn't help when so much of my strategy revolves around listening to sound cues. It's fucking crazy just how loud this game is! Now granted, was this something that was intended? Most definitely. And I'm not even saying that it's a bad thing, because obviously inherently it isn't. I was still able to beat the game just fine, and I feel like most other people would be able to beat it just fine as well. But this is something I couldn't not talk about. I love this game, but of course I'm not going to always be able to glaze everything I see, and I think this is truly the only flaw this game has. But hey, who gives a fuck about what I think? Let's move on to the cutscene, baby. Let me just say, I love this cutscene. I think everything about it is great. The pacing, the acting, everything is just so good that I don't want to ruin it by just talking about it. I'd much rather just show you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, put your hands together for our birthday
Well, god damn. We really should have listened and not come back, huh? So, it's safe to say that our pal Mark really got fucked here. Something I think is actually really cool. It's fairly common for FNAF games to have a character die in them, most commonly a phone guy, but to actually see it like this is just awesome. Going into night 6, we actually get a cutscene before the night happens rather than after it. In it, we play as the phone guy going into the building to get Mark. After a bit of searching, we find him, and once again, I think it'll just sit much better with you if you just watch it for yourself.
Mark? Is that you?
You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You should have done that shit. Oh, fuck.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
What do I do? Keep yourself together.
Are you fucking me? That's right. Turns out Mark isn't dead, but is just kind of possessed. Phone guy, or his real name, Matthew, runs back to the office with Mark on the pursuit, and night 6 begins. Night 6 consists of 4 threats, 2 of which we've already covered, Cap and Cackle and Peggy. However, you'll immediately notice that they both look pretty fucked up. Why is this? Well, turns out by demolish the animatronics, they really meant set the whole fucking building on fire. Because once again, it wouldn't be a FNAF game without a fire, right? Oh yeah, and of course, they are way more aggressive. Another thing you'll notice immediately is that we're stuck with the flashlight instead of the building lights. And let me tell you, as I'm sure you can already see, it is dark as fucking shit in this goddamn building with no lights. Of course, your flashlight has power, so you'll have to use it sparingly. You'll need to use it to check the hallways and to even be able to see Peggy in front of you. This honestly adds a whole new level of fear to this game, mainly with Peggy. I never got very good at telling when she switched positions, and to now have it where I can't even naturally see her just added a whole new fear factor, and I love it. The other 2 threats are the animatronic we saw in the post-night 2 cutscene, dubbed the Figure, and Mark himself, which is honestly one of the coolest twists I've ever seen. Having the character you've been playing as the whole time flip like this, it's insane. It's honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. Let's start with Mark. Mark works the same as Harry and Johnny, except I feel like he's even easier. He can attack from either of the 2 halls, and unlike Johnny and Harry, you cannot see his eyes. He's also much quieter. The reason I think he's easier? Well, you don't have to do any mental counting to tell when he's going to attack, as he has a totally unique sound cue for when he enters your office. So as long as you've got fast reflexes, it's really just a game of waiting to hear the sound cue and putting on the mask. The final new threat on this night is, of course, the Figure. He takes the place of Tony and Showman attacking your vents. He can attack any of the 3 you have, since there won't be 2 characters going for the vents at the same time. Again, I honestly feel like this is easier than Tony and Showman. Of course, the Figure is fucking light speed fast when choosing and climbing through vents, so as long as you've got fast reflexes, it really shouldn't be too much of a challenge. Ironically enough, the main challenge I had with this night was not the 2 new threats, but the 2 returning threats, Peggy and Cap and Cackle. Again, these 2 have the best synergy out of any of the characters in this game, so bringing them back for night 6 was a no-brainer. Really, the actual problem for me was Peggy. The sheer speed at which she moves is enough to make you shit in your britches, and nearing the end of the night, she will be moving at a speed Usain Bolt would be creaming his pants over. But if you can control your nerves for long enough, you'll complete night 6 and move on to the post-night cutscene. Matthew runs as fast as he can to the exit, only to find it locked. Turning around, we see Mark slowly creeping up on us like the booty cheek creep freak. The screen cuts to black, and we're left with only the screams of Matthew echoing throughout the pizzeria, and Showman's The Awakening comes to a close. Kind of. We're not exactly done just yet. There's actually 6 other secrets this game has to offer, that being the secret tapes. On each night, you will be able to find one of these tapes and play them later. On night 1, if you check camera 9, you'll be able to see a tape on the shelf in the top left corner. Night 2's tape is located in one of the drawers in your office. Night 3's tape is located on camera 3 on a shelf in the bottom left corner. Night 4's tape is located on camera 2 at the top of the screen. Night 5's tape is located on camera 5 on a high shelf in the middle of the camera, and Night 6 tape is conveniently located directly in front of you on the desk.
Hey there, post-scripting Deku here. Turns out I'm fucking wrong. These are not the locations of the tapes on every night. Turns out every single night, besides the 6th one, has a random location for each tape, each being on a different camera. This was just the order that I had. So, yeah. Sorry about that.
These tapes, as I'm sure you could have guessed, go over some extra bits of lore to help us piece together the story. And this is the part of the video where I say, I'm very sorry guys, I'm terrible at talking about story, but I'm going to try my best here. Tape 1 shows all of the characters on stage singing the happy birthday song to a kid whose name isn't explicitly said. We can see by the date of the tape that this takes place in 1995. Tape 2 seems to be a sort of log from Jason, explaining his reasoning for why he believes the characters are acting so hostile. Originally, when they were first being built, they attempted to add an advanced facial recognition system that would allow the characters to actually see and think for themselves. Although the system never ended up working as intended, they wiped the idea from their systems. Well, guess what, fucker? Turns out they really didn't, and Jason seems to think that this is the reason the characters are acting the way they are. Jason makes a brief mention of an unnamed him and questions if one of his employees are potentially tampering with the characters. I'm guessing that him is referring to either Mark or the figure. Tape 3 shows two guys working on Tony. They're talking about how these robots should be scrapped because of how old they are, and then the guy in the back says a sentence that I literally cannot for the fucking life of me decipher. Like many other things in this game, the static that plays during these cutscenes is so fucking loud I can't hear anything except it. I'll play what he says here, and if any of you guys can decipher it, please let me know in the comments.
That company's been up in deals with recently. Why?
Tape 4 is one of my favorites. It really gives off the FNAF VHS style that I really like. A maintenance worker is running a test on Cap and Cackle. It doesn't quite go as planned as he bugs out, so they restart him and then get attacked. Afterwards, showing the lifeless corpse of the employee laying on the floor in front of Cap and Cackle. It's just such an unnerving moment to see this in person. Usually when it comes to FNAF games and death, you don't see it. So seeing it in a game like this is really unnerving, and it adds a sort of realism to the actual events that are taking place. Tape 5 is probably my favorite of all the tapes, being the most terrifying in my opinion. In it, we're in the perspective of what sounds like a young girl. Hiding under a table, we hear a scream from another room. Shortly after, Johnny walks into the room and starts to look around. The girl accidentally makes a noise, and when she looks back up, Johnny is staring at her. And he quickly goes for the kill. This is such a fucking horrific and terrifying situation to think about being in, and I think that's why I like it so much. Just imagining being in the same situation makes my hair stand. Tape number 6 is an odd one. We appear to be being spoken to by the figure. He tells us that the birthday we saw earlier was Timmy's 12th birthday. He had 2 of his friends with him that day, and it was a party made specifically for him. Then we see 3 drawings of his friends, all of them sad. The figure appears in front of us and slowly glances up before the tape ends. Again, as I've previously stated, lore analysis is not my strong suit at all, so I really can't even begin to imagine what anything here means. I know robots mad and robots kill, and I think that is neat enough. Overall, Showman's The Awakening is such a big step up from Phobia, and while I still do love that game, I think I love Showman's even more. Amazing graphical upgrades, fantastic cutscenes, and a gameplay loop that's so fun, difficult, yet still not frustrating. This game really has it all, and I truly think it's a fantastic game to play if you're at all interested in horror games. Even if you're not a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan, I still think you should give it a try.